Chapter 1229. Zhuoduo was silent for a long time. Just say that. I stopped you and wouldn't let you go. I want to hear what Grandma Zhua has to say. Just a few words will do, Wang Lingyun said. Zhuoduo understood. The old woman still had a glimmer of hope in her heart, or rather, a glimmer of unwillingness. Zhuoduo took out his phone expressionlessly, dialed Wu Yuding's number, and put it on speaker. What's the matter? Wu Yuding's voice came from the other end. The Wang family stole something from our family. I came to take it, but they wouldn't let me go, Zhuoduo said. How dare they? Wu Yuding said angrily. They stole from our family and they want to just let it go? What did they steal? Let them pay back 10 times. The mother and son cooperated well. Wu Yuding knew that her son was using the tiger's skin as an excuse to make a big deal out of it. But since it was her son who was causing trouble, as a mother, she naturally had to cooperate perfectly. On the other side, Wang Lingyun's tears fell. She sobbed and said, Grandma Zhua. It's Xiao Yun. On the other end of the phone, Wu Yuding's voice paused. Xiao Yun? Are you still alive? Grandma Zhua. It's me. Wang Lingyun wailed. Xiao Yun. Wu Yuding sighed and said, How many years have you been away from the world? It's been more than 4,000 years. 4,800 years. Wang Lingyun sobbed and said, Since Ling-er passed away. I've been away from the world. Well, before that I didn't care about anything. Wu Yuding sighed faintly. So you don't know anything about what happened all these years? I don't know. Wu Yuding's voice came. Xiaoduo. Yes. Take Wang Lingyun out. Wu Yuding sighed and said, Don't forget to bring the startling sword. This. Zhuoduo was stunned. Taking away someone else's ancestor in their home. What was that supposed to mean? How could Wang Han and the others be willing to let their final protective talisman be taken away? If you can't take him away, I'll send you Dong Tian and Yun Zhonghu over. They have the ability to take him away. Wu Yuding's voice sounded faintly. Yes, not only did they have the ability to take people away, they also had the ability to wipe out the Wang family in an instant. The heavenly kings of the left and right had both arrived. When Wang Han and Wang Zhong heard this message, their faces turned ashen. From today onwards, Wang Lingyun is no longer related to the Wang clan. Wu Yuding said, Xiao Yun, are you willing? Wang Lingyun sobbed, I'm willing. Grandma Zhua, can I ask? Wu Yuding said indifferently, Your uncle will naturally tell you later. Things in the world are unpredictable, and karma is never pleasant. With that, she hung up the phone. Wang Lingyun burst into tears, like an orphan who had been separated for thousands of years suddenly reunited with his family. Although she had only heard his voice, her heart was already surging with emotions. She couldn't stop the urge to cry. Wang Lingyun was an old man who had lived for more than 10,000 years, and the flame of his life had reached the end and was about to be extinguished. However, the admiration at this moment was so overwhelming that it was difficult to suppress it. What do you say? Zhuoduo asked. I'll go with you. Wang Lingyun replied without any hesitation. Ancestor. Everyone in the Wang family knelt down neatly. Wang Lingyun took a deep breath and said, I'll go and see what you've done. You're really unforgivable. Then I won't come back. Don't tarnish the ancestors' glory anymore. I'll take the startling sword away. If there's still room for redemption, I'll beg Grandma Zhua to let me come back with the startling sword. Wang Lingyun said resolutely, Don't kneel. You're destined to not be able to keep me. Don't even recognize you anymore. Wang Han took a few steps forward on his knees, looked up and cried, Ancestor. Didn't you hear what Grandma Zhua said? Wang Lingyun said coldly, Don't tell me. You want the left and right heavenly kings to come and take me away? Wang Han lowered his head and lay on the ground, crying loudly as if his father had died. No, even if his father had died, a sly old fox like him would most likely not be so pitiful and miserable in his 7 emotions. When Zhuoduo and the others pushed Wang Lingyun out of the Wang family in a wheelchair, only the sound of crying could be heard behind them. Everyone from the Wang clan was kneeling on the ground. They were all covered in dust and their eyes were filled with despair. They knew very well. Today, Wang Lingyun had left with the startling sword, and the Wang family had lost their last hope. The dying Wang Lingyun was not the Wang family's last hope. The real hope was the startling sword in his hand. The war god's sword. That was the trump card that could save the Wang family. It was also the last mark left by the war god of the continent, Wang Feihong. If one person and sword left the Wang family at the same time, they would lose their last trump card. However, no one dared to say anything at this moment. No one dared to say a word. The minister madam had said very clearly that if Zhuo Duo could not do it, she would immediately send the left and right heavenly kings over. With just one order, the left and right heavenly kings would arrive here in half an hour. Even at the peak of the Wang family would not be able to resist the combined power of the two heavenly kings, not to mention the Wang family that was now in a precarious situation. He would definitely leave. Looking at the old figure that was like a candle in the wind slowly walking to the door and leaving the Wang family mansion, Wang Han could not help but be filled with hatred. He could not hold it in anymore. He said loudly, "Ancestor, I have something to say." Wang Lingyun's withered face twitched. He patted Long Yuxing's hand that was pushing the wheelchair and turned around. "Speak." Wang Han stood up suddenly, straightened his back, looked at Wang Lingyun and said loudly, "Wang Han is not talented, but as the current head of the Wang family, now that Ancestor has decided to leave, I would like to represent all the descendants of the Wang family to ask Ancestor a question." The withered look in Wang Lingyun's eyes did not change, like a pool of stagnant water. He said lightly, "Ask." "May I ask Ancestor, since Ancestor has broken out of the door today, does Ancestor intend to completely cut ties with the Wang family? You even took away the startling sword that the descendants of the Wang family rely on as their life support and the greatest glory. Have you ever thought about the future generations of the Wang family, not even a little bit?" Wang Han's face was filled with grief and anger as he questioned loudly. Zhuo Duo was furious and was about to refute. Wang Lingyun slowly raised his withered hand and stopped Zhuo Duo's hand. He said gently, "Little uncle, let me solve the Wang family's problem. You have to pay for what you have done. As Grandma Zhuo said, the world is unpredictable, and karma is never good." He turned his indifferent gaze to Wang Han's face and said indifferently, "I understand the meaning of your words. Do you think that the Wang family will lose its strongest protection if the startling sword leaves the Wang family?" Although it was embarrassing, Wang Han had no choice. He raised his head and said, "Yes. If the startling sword leaves, the Wang family will be finished. Ancestor, please show mercy and give the descendants a chance to live." Wang Lingyun did not speak for a long time. After a long time, he coughed and said, "So you have really done things to the extreme." Wang Han lowered his head and did not speak. "So you have really made a big mistake, to the point where you need the ancestors' help to save your life. That's why you told me today that the minister's descendant came to provoke you and asked me to step in. Indeed, everything in the world has karma, and karma is not unpredictable." Wang Lingyun sighed. "Ancestor, please show mercy." The Wang family members shouted in unison. In order to survive, they did not care about their reputation anymore. Wang Lingyun's withered face showed a mocking expression. He held the startling sword with both hands and said lightly, "You should all know that a magical sword has a spirit, right? Back then, my ancestor wielded a sword in white. One man and one sword, he killed all the heroes in the world. He never bowed, he never retreated. He would rather break than bend, he would rather die than retreat. That was my ancestor's illustrious name." Wang Lingyun's gaze was distant, as if he saw his grandfather Wang Feihong, who was dressed in white like a sword. In all his memories, he had never seen his grandfather's white robe stained with dust, and he had never seen his grandfather bend his back for even a second. He was always so proud and upright, looking down on the world. He was dressed in white under the cold sky. He chilled the 3 continents with one sword. Heavenly King Jinghong. Wang Lingyun recited slowly, full of coldness, white robe stained, on the peak of the ice mountain, proud and elegant sword. The entire place was silent. Although they did not have a good impression of the current Wang family, Zhuo Duo and the others could still feel their blood boiling when they heard about Heavenly King Jinghong's deeds. It was as if they could see that proud and aloof swordsman in white robe. When there was no one left to fight, he came out alone with his sword. One man and one sword, he faced the countless Heavenly King experts of the Umno Alliance and proudly challenged them. If you can defeat me, Wang Feihong, you will win. His proud and upright body did not bend even when he died. He would rather turn into a bright star than accept the defeat that would determine the fate of the continent. That earth-shattering explosion still reverberated in the hearts of generations of the Star Soul Continent's ancestors until this day. Back then, my ancestor fought against the heavenly kings of the world alone. He used this Jinghong sword. Wang Lingyun looked at the sword in his hand. This sword is as proud as my ancestor. You want it to protect you? Let's not talk about whether you deserve it or not. Dare you ask it if it is willing? Wang Lingyun's voice was as calm as water, but his old face slowly turned red with anger. It was obvious that his heart was not calm and he was extremely angry. He pulled out the sword with all his might. Light flashed, and it was as if all the frost in the world had descended at this moment. This was the power of the sword itself. After Wang Lingyun pulled the sword out of its sheath, he threw it out. The long sword somersaulted in the air a few times, and light shone in all directions before it landed on the ground with a clang. The tip of the sword stabbed into the hard ground of the Wang family's old residence. The long sword flickered and swayed slightly. Although it was just a sword, although it no longer had an owner. However, this sword was still as aloof and proud as ever. Stabbed into the ground, it was still at the peak of the ice mountain, looking down on the world and shocking the world. Cold and arrogant, no one was worthy of being associated with it. The sword swayed and the frost was still cold. A sense of anticipation was faintly emitted. It was as if it was waiting for its owner's big hands to come and hold the sword hilt again. Come and hold me. I will accompany you to fight the heroes of the world again. Come quickly. After a long time, the sword finally stopped swaying, but the feeling of anticipation had gradually vanished, and it transformed into a feeling of loneliness, and sorrow. It was filled with a feeling of loss and sadness, and it effused out from the sword. Where did you go? Why didn't you come? After losing its partner, the Jinghong sword had been lonely until now. Now that it was out of its sheath again, it was still sharp, still cold, still radiant, and still full of fighting spirit. It wanted to fight the world again, but it no longer had that person to accompany it in the martial world. Clang, clang, clang. The Jinghong sword let out 3 sorrowful sword cries. Chapter 12:30. Clang, clang, clang. The startling sword let out 3 sorrowful sword cries. The glow of the sword slowly retracted and there was an endless sense of loss and silence. Just like an abandoned puppy, it curled up in the corner. Wang Lingyun looked at the startling sword and said word by word, Wang Han, can you ask the startling sword if it is willing to be your shield for your mistakes? Wang Han looked at the motionless startling sword and took a step forward. Just as he was about to speak, clang, a loud and clear sword chime suddenly rang out, coming from the startling sword. Everyone present could hear the uncontrollable anger in this sword hum. It was a kind of extreme shame and humiliation that couldn't be any stronger surging emotions. This caused everyone present to feel the same way, and they were indescribably shocked. With a flash of light, the startling sword that was clearly not controlled by anyone pulled itself out from the ground and spun in the air. The sword light shot out in all directions and stopped steadily in midair. The tip of the sword was pointed at Wang Han's glabella. A massive sword intent that was filled with humiliation, anger, and irritation suddenly spread out. The sword could not speak, but at this moment, everyone could feel its meaning. It was clear. Don't use such things to humiliate me. That was what the startling sword wanted to say. There was no doubt about it. Wang Han stood rooted to the ground and stared at the startling sword. His body was stiff and he could not speak. Wang Lingyun sighed deeply and moved the scabbard in his hand. In mid-air, the startling sword let out a sword cry, as if it was still angry. With a spin, it returned to its scabbard with a soft sound and returned to silence. The sharpness of the sword that challenged the world also disappeared quietly and turned into loneliness. Wang Lingyun burst into tears and stroked the startling sword. He choked and said, "The startling sword was unsheathed this time and did not find its ancestor. It returned to its scabbard in disappointment. I'm afraid it will never be willing to come out of its scabbard again." Zuoshaoduo and the others sighed softly. Looking at the startling sword that was shrouded in a deathly atmosphere, they felt complicated but did not know what it was. Although they were young geniuses with outstanding cultivations, their life experiences were still shallow. They were unable to experience the loneliness of 10,000 years. Once, the man and the sword were one, and they had promised each other that they would never leave each other. Now, the sword was still there, but the man was gone. Wang Lingyun turned his wheelchair around. He really couldn't bear to look at these unfilial descendants anymore. "Ancestor!" Behind him, the Wang family members cried out mournfully. Wang Lingyun never looked back. "The Wang clan is no longer mine. The Wang clan is yours. Before my grandfather died in battle, he asked a few of his close friends to take care of the Gu family's descendants. At that time, his grandfather had said, 'This war requires sacrifices. If we don't sacrifice blood to the heavens, how can we achieve peace? The two of you are the pillars of the astral souls and cannot be lost. If this battle requires someone of sufficient weight to die, then I, as the first in line, will be the one to do it. If anything happens to me in this battle, I'll have to rely on my brothers to take care of the Wang family.'" Wang Lingyun said indifferently, "Is this all you remember? No, or should I say, that's all you remember?" These words were well known throughout the entire continent. Who didn't know of Heavenly King Wang's heroic deeds? Not to mention that the Wang clan had spread it intentionally or unintentionally. It could be said that everyone knew about it. Back then, when the minister and the emperor sent the ancestor back, they deliberately spread these words to the world, but they concealed the last part of the ancestor's will. The minister and the emperor did not say it for the sake of the Wang clan. But the ancestor's will is still engraved in the ancestral hall. Don't you remember? You just don't want to remember, or you don't want others to remember or know. Wang Lingyun said in a low voice, "Whether you remember or not is irrelevant because I still remember. I'll read it to you now. The remaining part is, if my descendants do well, brothers, help me out. If they don't and use my meager contributions to bring disaster to the continent, please eliminate them as soon as possible. I, Wang Feihong, am a hero of my generation. I believe that I'm not ordinary. Don't let my unfilial descendants tarnish my name. I'm fighting for the world, not to be a protective umbrella for the little brats. If my descendants are unavoidable, don't wait until they're gone before you act. Remember that I, Wang Feihong, cannot afford to lose that face. The startling sword is enough to protect me for my entire life." Wang Lingyun stroked the startling sword in his hand lovingly. Hot tears rolled down his face as he said, "Wang Han, everyone of the Wang clan, don't tarnish my grandfather's illustrious name. Let's go." He pushed the wheelchair out. Long Yusheng hurriedly stepped forward and took over pushing the wheelchair toward the door. They walked until they were far away, but there was no more sound behind them. The countless Wang clan members behind them looked on in a daze. They knew clearly that the last barrier, the last protective talisman, had disappeared. Wang Lingyun sat in the wheelchair and looked at the scenery on both sides of the street listlessly. He wanted to see this world and recall the past, the places where he had walked hand in hand with his beloved wife. However, he hadn't left the Wang clan's old mansion for a long time. The outside had changed greatly. As far as the eye could see, it was strangely unfamiliar. It was a completely different world, and he couldn't even recall the scenery. His white hair fluttered in the wind. His expression was blank, and so was his gaze. A sense of desolation rose spontaneously. This is no longer the world that you and I are familiar with. From beginning to end, he didn't look back. After pushing him for more than 10 minutes, Wang Lingyun said softly, "Little uncle, let's hurry." Zuoshaoduo picked up the wheelchair. Everyone jumped up and returned to Zuoshaoyan's small courtyard as fast as lightning. Before leaving, Zhou Xiaoduo only wanted to bully and humiliate the other party. He never thought that he would actually invite the ancestor of the Wang clan back. Moreover, it was his mother who asked him to invite him back. Looking at Wang Lingyun sitting in the villa, Zhou Xiaoduo couldn't help but have a headache. He didn't know what his mother was thinking. In short, he felt that everything was so strange. It was indescribable, and indescribable. LV Yingfeng came to say goodbye. Xiaoduo, I'm going back. Then take care. Take care of Grandma LV. I'll visit you in a few days. LV Yingfeng walked to the door and turned to say, Xiaoduo, I've put the spatial rings of those things in the cracks of the sofa. Use them well and improve quickly. Zhou Xiaoduo was stunned. What are you doing? That was for you in the first place. LV Yingfeng shook his head and waved his hand. The LV family doesn't need so many resources. You're all Qian. You're all good children that your old principal thinks highly of. As long as I can see you improve and achieve more, I'll be satisfied. He looked at Zhou Xiaoduo and the others kindly and said with relief, I've already benefited greatly from the fact that you thought of inviting me along today. Xiaoduo, although the LV family may not have the ability, this old man still wants to continue to cultivate the genius that my daughter fancies, and cultivate the person she painstakingly cares about in her life. Remember to work hard. LV Yingfeng smiled, turned around, and walked out of the door. Zhou Xiaoduo and the others were all excited. Receiving LV Yingfeng's heartfelt praise was no different from receiving the old principal's praise. For Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong, this was happier than any praise. Wang Lingyun looked at LV Yingfeng's back with admiration in her eyes. She praised, Who is this person? His open-mindedness is the best in the world. Zhou Xiaoduo and the others had the same thought, but they missed He Yuanyue even more than they rejoiced. Li Chenglong and the others wanted to talk to Wang Lingyun, but Wang Lingyun was not willing to do so. Right now, I urgently want to know what exactly the Wang clan has done. Wang Lingyun looked at Zhou Xiaoduo with her sunken eyes and pleaded, Little uncle, let me see. Zhou Xiaoduo sighed and gestured for Li Chenglong to give him the information. Li Chenglong thought for a while and began to organize the information. He divided all the information into 3 parts, and gradually let Wang Lingyun understand them one by one. Wang Lingyun couldn't wait to pick up the first book with trembling hands. Zhou Xiaoduo gave Li Chenglong a look, and Li Chenglong expressed his understanding. He already had a few bottles of heaven's turning water in his hand. If Wang Lingyun became emotional and something happened, he would immediately take it to protect her. Then, Zhou Xiaoduo read Wang Lingyun's fortune. His heart sank and he slipped out to call Wu Yuding. Yes, you picked him up? Good. But because of this, your identity is almost exposed. Basically, you know everything you need to know. What do you think? Puppy? Are you ready to be a rich second generation? This seems to be your biggest wish in life. Wu Yuding joked with her son. Mom. Zhou Xiaoduo said with a bitter face, I've been risking my life every day. How can I enjoy being a rich second generation at all? Wu Yuding laughed. Silly boy, let me tell you, this is what a rich second generation is really like. Do you think the second generation is just eating and waiting for death? Do you think our generation can only nurture rich playboys? Let me tell you, from ancient times until now, except for a very small number of people with mediocre talent who only have the ability to preserve their achievements, the rest are basically all exhausted to death. Being forced by their own parents to the point where they have nowhere to go is nothing but a trivial matter. This is the real life of a rich second generation. Because of corruption and playboys, the real big families, the descendants of real heroes, or the heirs of dynasties. All of them didn't start from the second generation. Because the first generation is wise and powerful. How can they allow their children to be playboys and corrupt? You want to be a salted fish when you're just a dog? You must be crazy. Wu Yuding's accent was very heavy. Zhou Xiaoduo smiled bitterly. How could he not understand this? But the second generation he had pinned his hopes on was never the second generation in this sense, okay? At least, it was completely different from the second generation he had pinned his hopes on. Well, is it because I'm too outstanding, too talented? It's my fault. Chapter 12:31. Zhuoxiao Duo sighed. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have tried so hard to enter the path of cultivation. If that was the case, would he have been able to become a second-generation heir? That still wasn't right. If that was the case, Nian Nian Cat wouldn't be fated with him. Even if he was willing and Nian Nian Cat was willing, his parents wouldn't agree to it. Sigh. Life is always so difficult to be perfect. While Zhuoxiao's thoughts were running wild, his mother's political class didn't stop. She had more to say and went on for a long time. I understand, Mom. You're calling to ask about Wang Lingyun, right? Yes. This is what your father and I wanted. Wang Feihong only had one son, but he died in battle early. Both husband and wife died at Sun Moon Pass. At that time, Wang Lingyun was only 7 years old. His younger siblings were even more immature. Wu Yuding sighed and said, Wang Feihong loved this grandson the most. Even when Wang Lingyun grew up and had children, Wang Feihong would still bring gifts for Wang Lingyun every time he returned from the battlefield. And his last words were very clear. It was enough to protect his grandson for the rest of his life with the Jinghong sword. In other words, the one Wang Feihong couldn't let go of the most was his grandson, only his grandson. Wu Yuding said, to be fair, Wang Lingyun didn't let Wang Feihong down. He lived a simple, conscientious, and honest life. He built the Wang family single-handedly and maintained the Wang family's traditions for 3,000 years. At that time, the Wang family could be said to be the #1 family in astral souls. They did things openly, and their traditions were stable and prudent. They didn't tarnish the name of the god of war for astral souls at all. But because of the death of his beloved wife, he was too sad and went into seclusion. After so many years, I thought he had already passed away. I didn't expect him to still be alive. Wu Yuding sighed and said, so you have to understand that the Wang family can be destroyed, but this Wang Lingyun, your father and I can't ignore him. I understand. Don't worry, Ma. How is Xiao Yuner now? Wu Yuding asked with concern. Very bad. His entire body is thin and shriveled. Only a handful of bones are left. Zhuoxiao Duo sighed and said, I don't have much lifespan left to begin with. After today, my lifespan will inevitably be reduced. Although we've already brought him out, it's hard to save him from the shadow of a candle in the wind. From what I've read, Wang Lingyun will pass away in half a month's time. It's not something that can be stopped by anyone. No matter how miraculous the elixirs are, it will be difficult to extend his lifespan. Half a month. On the other side of the phone, Wu Yuding suddenly fell silent. Then, Zhuo Changlu picked up the phone. Obviously, he had been listening by the side. Zhuo Changlu's calm voice rang out, Xiao Duo. Do you have a way to extend Wang Lingyun's life? I want to hear the truth. The heaven-mending stone can do it. Zhuo Duo gave an affirmative answer immediately. Then he said in distress, but the biggest problem now is Wang Lingyun himself. I can't see any signs of life in him. Just now, he strongly requested to see the Wang family's information and evidence. I'm worried that after he sees it, his remaining lifespan will be destroyed again. Zhuo Changlu sighed and said, tell Wang Lingyun that I still want to see him. Tell him to hang in there. But perhaps this was the only way to let Wang Lingyun stay in this world for a little longer. There were too few things in this world that could move him. Zhuoxiao Duo sighed. On the other side of the phone, Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding also sighed. At this moment, a heart-wrenching roar came from the villa. I'm so angry. Then there was a loud bang. Zhuoxiao Duo hurriedly said and immediately walked back. Don't hang up. Zhuo Changlu said hurriedly, put it on speakerphone. In the room, Wang Lingyun's eyes were wide open. He stared at the file in front of him in disbelief. His whole body trembled and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. His face was red and he roared hoarsely, These are really done by our Wang family? At this moment, the guilt and shame in the old man's heart reached the extreme and almost burst out. He had a premonition that the Wang family, which he had ignored for a long time, was rotten. They bullied people, dominated the market, killed people, and even interfered with the imperial court. After all, He had been in charge of the Wang family for 3,000 years. He had long been used to the filth of the world, but he had always kept his original heart. However, the more he read, the more frightened and cold he felt. The content recorded in the file was all kinds of immoral and bottomless, all kinds of heartless, all kinds of unimaginable, all kinds of inhumane things that it was actually done by the God of War family that I founded. The old man only felt his heart shattering bit by bit. His whole body was filled with cold and hot feelings. His mind was endless, but it also felt like thousands of things were happening at the same time, one after another. Li Chenglong opened a bottle of heaven's returning water and stepped forward to feed him the medicine. However, he was pulled to the side by Wang Lingyun. Wang Lingyun trembled and suddenly stood up. His eyes were red as he screamed, "This is my Wang family? This is my Wang family? This is the God of War family, the Wang family?" His fingers trembled and the file rustled. Suddenly, his face turned red. "How can I face grandfather in the underworld? How can I face?" Suddenly, he choked on his breath. His throat made gurgling sounds and his eyes bulged out. Li Chenglong screamed and hurriedly supported the old man. He forced the bottle of heaven's returning water down his throat. Wang Lingyun struggled violently and refused to take the medicine. It was obvious that he wanted to die. However, Li Chenglong didn't care about him at all and forced the medicine down his throat. "Oh my God! How can I face myself to continue living?" Wang Lingyun wailed, "The Wang family that I founded with my own hands. I thought that I inherited grandfather's great prestige and the glory of the God of War. However, after I ignored it, I let the family fall step by step into this state. I am full of sins, too many to record. I created a huge tumor for this continent. It harms the common people and is extremely poisonous." He screamed at the top of his lungs as tears streamed down his face. His hands slapped his head with all their might, making loud banging sounds. He never would have thought. There were countless things in the file. Every single one of them was the result of the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. They were all evil deeds that couldn't be resolved even if they were chopped into pieces. As for the Wang clan, they actually made an entire thick book. It was truly too numerous to record, and it was extremely poisonous. "Is there more? Is there more?" Wang Lingyun grabbed the file. "This is only from the past 20 years. What about before that? What about before that? Is this generation's clan head muddle-headed? What caused the Wang family to fall into such a state?" His eyes flashed with extreme desire. He hoped that he could get a definite answer. Li Chenglong said indifferently, "This is indeed only the file of the Wang family's misdeeds in the past 20 years. In my hands, I also have all the evidence of the Wang family's crimes in the past 3,000 years. The crimes of every 20 years are no less than this file. It's just that for the previous files, even the ancestors of the victims have all died. It's useless even if I show it to you. It's meaningless." Wang Lingyun slammed the table and shouted angrily, I want to see every single file. Show it to me." His eyes were already filled with dead silence and ashes. That was the appearance of someone who had nothing left to live for. Obviously, if the Wang Lingyun who had just arrived had a trace of hope, a trace of life, now he was in complete despair. He didn't want to live anymore. He muttered, "After I die, I want to go and ask grandfather for forgiveness. These mistakes, I want to say them all, report them one by one. I am a sinner. Show it to me. Show it to me." Li Chenglong saw that old Master Wang Lingyun was already in a state of delirium. He was extremely worried that something bad would happen to him in the next second. Even if he had the water of reversal, it would be useless. However, who was Li Chenglong? His brain worked quickly, and there was no one who could match him in this world. He could only think and come up with the idea of fighting poison with poison. He snorted coldly and said, "What are you shouting for? Aren't all these things done by your descendants? Aren't all these good things done by your children and grandchildren? How can you shout at me so righteously? Ordering me around? If all the files and evidence are taken out, this villa won't be able to fit them all. Can you look through them all alone? A month, A year or the rest of your life? Li Chenglong sneered. These words were extremely unpleasant, but it calmed Wang Lingyun down immediately. He also calmed down. His face was full of shame and shame. His old body trembled. Suddenly, he curled up on the sofa. He covered his face with his hands and cried silently. Drops of tears leaked out from between his fingers and dripped onto the Jinghong sword. The Jinghong sword still had no reaction. It was as if it was dead silent. At this moment, a voice was heard, "Wang Lingyun. What do you want?" This familiar voice made Wang Lingyun tremble all over. He stood up instinctively and then stood at attention. "Grandfather Zhua." Zhua Chenglu's voice came from the phone. "Look after your grandfather's Jinghong sword. Even if you want to die, you have to watch the evil family you created be eradicated. This malignant tumor still exists in this world. Do you want to die just like that? End all troubles? Look at the Jinghong sword in your hand. Think carefully about how to restore the reputation of the god of war." Zhua Chenglu shouted, "The Wang family you created was never the god of war's family. Don't you understand this layer of cause and effect? Your grandfather only wants to protect you for the rest of his life. Do you know? You're no longer a member of the Wang family. You're just your grandfather's grandson. Do you understand? You're already so old, crying all the time. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, I find it an eyesore." Zhua Chenglu said angrily, "Your grandma Zhua and I can't go back now. You stay in Shangjing and look after your uncle. Don't make us worry. Can you do that?" Chapter 1232. After a thunderous reprimand, Wang Lingyun finally calmed down with a face full of shame. After hanging up the phone, Wang Lingyun began to take the initiative to find medicine to stabilize his mind, calm his state of mind, and recuperate. He no longer wanted to die. On the contrary, he urgently wanted to live until the day he could see Grandpa Zhua and Grandma Zhua again. Zhua Xiaoduo was not lying when he said that he had the confidence to save Wang Lingyun's life. Wang Lingyun's lifespan was almost depleted and his body was in a terrible state. It was not something that could be healed by any kind of elixir. However, this was not a difficult task for Zhua Xiaoduo. Zhua Xiaoduo had infinite vitality and a huge amount of vitality given by Elder One. As long as he did not want someone to die, as long as he provided the target with enough vitality, the target would not die even if they wanted to. As for the crippled body, it was even simpler. Wasn't there still the heaven-mending stone? That was a sacred object that could heal even a heavenly king stage powerhouse's body in an instant. Treating a person who was in the twilight of his life was just a small feat. Zhua Xiaoduo first stuck the heaven-mend stone on Wang Lingyun's body so that his body could bear the life force. Then he used the life force in his spiritual sense space to stabilize Wang Lingyun's vitality. Then he used 1/3 of the laurel honey to strengthen his divine soul. It was not that Zhua Xiaoduo did not want to give more. It was that Wang Lingyun could only bear so much. Wang Lingyun's lifespan was about to come to an end, and that was the biggest problem. Once his lifespan was completely exhausted, his life would naturally come to an end. That was the true meaning of the heaven-mending stone. Zhua Xiaoduo sighed. "When you were young, you overdrew your life potential to improve your cultivation. And more than once?" Wang Lingyun was surprised. "Uncle, you really have a sharp eye." Zhua Xiaoduo sighed. "After that, when you found that your lifespan was about to end, you used your vitality to forcibly prolong your lifespan?" Wang Lingyun was completely stunned at this time. Grandpa Zhua and the others knew about overdrawing their life potential, but they didn't dare to do so after being scolded. Because his initial dream was to break through to a higher level of cultivation regardless of the cost. He wanted to inherit his grandfather's legacy and enter the battlefield with the startling sword, hoping that the name of the god of war would not be tarnished. However, reality was exceptionally cruel. Even though his will was as firm as a boulder, his body truly did not have that kind of talent that could be cultivated. Like Wang Lingyun, who was unwilling to accept this, he secretly overdrafted himself many times and advanced all the way until he was not inferior to any of the outstanding talents of that time. But later, his true identity was discovered by the minister. He was severely reprimanded and ordered to return home. He was never allowed to set foot on the battlefield again. It was also because of this that the Wang clan existed. However, no one knew that he had used the art of dispersing vitality, condensing his life spirit, and forcibly prolong his lifespan. How did Zuoxiao Duo know? You did it twice. The former drained your foundation, and the latter made your already broken body even more unbearable. Although you can struggle at death's door, your vitality will not be restored, and your cultivation realm will not exist. Your body will not be able to take any nourishment. Even if you get a heaven-defying elixir or a miraculous pill, you will not be able to enjoy it. Zuoxiao Duo expressed his heartfelt sigh. Even if he used all his means to treat Wang Lingyun with his current condition, he would at most be able to maintain his life for a year. After that, there was no other way. And this lifespan was the upper limit of Wang Lingyun's art of dispersing vitality. Wang Lingyun smiled. It's okay. I know my own body's condition. With your help, I have enough time. I will definitely be able to see Grandpa and Grandma. He sighed softly. At that time, my wife was still healthy, but I was already at the end of my life. In desperation, I had no choice but to use the art of dispersing vitality. I dispersed 90% of my life's art of dispersing vitality. Against heaven's will, I restored my life spirit to the divine reigning destiny, and gained an additional 5,000 years of lifespan. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with my wife, but I did not expect that. After only a few decades, my wife would suddenly die. From then on, we would be separated by life and death. Sigh. He stared blankly ahead, lost in thought. As for why Wang Lingyun's wife could die, he did not continue. But Zuoxiao Duo understood that there must be a rather long story behind this. Uncle, Grandpa asked me to look after you. But I hope you won't be angry, and don't think I'm nagging. Wang Lingyun said very carefully, in addition, the things that the Wang family has done these years. I also need to take a look and confirm the situation. Speaking of the family, he finally sighed. It's really a great shame. I, as your nephew, am really ashamed. Zuoxiao Duo had a nephew who was more than 10,000 years old. He also felt uncomfortable all over. Not to mention that this was the ancestor of the Wang family. When he heard that Wang Lingyun wanted to organize the Wang family's files, he immediately felt relieved and said, just do what you need to do. If there's anything you need to ask, just look for Li Chenglong. He's an expert in this field. And it's best to gather all the questions before asking. He's very capable, but his temper is not good. After a pause, he continued, is there anything you can't let go of in the Wang family, or do you need anything? Other things? Wang Lingyun smiled bitterly. No. Zuoxiao Duo frowned. For example, your direct descendant. Son? Grandson? Wang Lingyun sighed. When I was in charge of the family, my children were all driven to the battlefield by me. Until now, even my great-great-grandchildren have all died 7,000 years ago. When I was in charge of the family, the Wang family was pretty good. If my children were still alive, the Wang family wouldn't have fallen to such a state today. No matter how bad the family is, how could this bunch of bastards be in charge of it? Don't think about me. Wang Lingyun was completely disheartened. I just want to do my part now. I'm not here to make any requests. If I still shamelessly make any requests, how can I face Grandpa and Grandpa Zua? Firstly, I don't have the face to make any requests. Secondly, there's no one I want to save. Look at the actions of the Wang family in recent years. It shows that the current Wang family has long decayed to the bone. There is not a single person who is qualified to continue living. Including me, the one who started all of this. Their sins are grave and unforgivable. Wang Lingyun said with tears in his eyes. Zuoxiao's eyes flashed and he said, perhaps the Wang family still has some babies in swaddling clothes. Wang Lingyun shook his head decisively. No need. They say that the babies are innocent, but they were born after drinking the blood of the people and eating the flesh of the heroes. How can they be innocent? Wang Lingyun gritted his teeth and said, the Wang family. Let it be. I was muddle-headed and only knew how to immerse myself in the memories of the past, completely ignoring the affairs of the world. Otherwise, the Wang family would have long been reduced to ashes in my hands. How could I allow this bunch of bastards to tarnish the reputation of the ancestors? Zuoxiao Duo nodded secretly. So, I'll arrange a room for you on the first floor. There's a living room, a study, and a bedroom. You can quietly read the information of the Wang family these years. In addition, if there are guests, if you want to, you can meet them, or even old friends of the past. Okay. Wang Lingyun agreed immediately. Looking at Wang Lingyun holding the Jinghong sword and entering the study, the back view that was struggling to support himself, but was actually extremely lonely. With so many elixirs, it was enough to greatly improve his body, and even his current best condition. However, there was no change in the aura of a dying man. That was already within the scope of the heart, and it was not something that could be healed by elixirs. Zuoxiao Duo sighed deeply. The few words just now had already made each other's bottom line clear. Wang Lingyun really did not have any thoughts about the current Wang family. Even he himself was a walking corpse, a living dead who only had one last thought left. The glory of the family. Zuoxiao Duo sighed softly. Is it really that heavy? Li Chenglong said softly from the side. Everyone's experiences are different, and they each have their own understanding of these 4 words. It's especially heavy on Wang Lingyun, probably because his grandfather is the Jinghong Heavenly King. The glory of the God of War is supreme and cannot be tarnished. In Wang Lingyun's heart, this was many times more important than the family. Even his own reputation is not worth mentioning compared to that of the God of War. That's why he felt so uncomfortable and couldn't bear it after knowing the truth. Li Chenglong sighed and said, I think, if Uncle's phone call hadn't stimulated his last bit of vitality, perhaps Wang Lingyun would be lying in a coffin now. Sigh. How's your sorting of the clues? The clues are actually very clear. The only problem now is where the 15th star is, or what method they use to activate it, and their mode of action. Li Chenglong sighed. Zuoxiao Duo laughed. Do you want to solve it in advance and take drastic measures to deal with it? Swish, this is the heavenly Tao. Moreover, there is an extremely brilliant Qi diviner behind the other party. Well, speaking of this Qi diviner, I reckon his attainment is not below mine. In fact, he is even stronger than me in terms of pure Qi diviner. Zuoxiao's expression was somewhat heavy as he said, if it wasn't so, I would have sensed something by now. However, this person is so cautious that he doesn't want to be tainted by karma or even cut off karma. He is really amazing. Who is he? It was a pity that Li Chenglong couldn't help him on this point, and neither could his friends. Let's practice. Zuoxiao Duo sighed. At the same time, in a cafe in Shangjing, a man and a woman, both of whom looked ordinary, were having a meeting here. Something big happened in the Wang family, the woman said. What happened? The man took a sip of tea. I don't know what's wrong with Zuoxiao Duo. He gathered people to cause trouble in the Wang family, blackmailing them. Deliberately disgusting. And then. Chapter 12:33. The woman recounted the incident in detail. The man gritted his teeth as he listened, his emotions surging. This shitstir. How could he do such a thing? It's really. Only someone with no moral integrity would do such a thing. The woman frowned and sighed. The key issue now is no longer about moral integrity. The biggest problem is Zuoxiao's identity has been exposed. It's completely exposed to the eyes of the higher-ups. The man said, it's related to the Sky Surveyor throne, right? Is he a member of the throne's side branch? Or a descendant? The woman smiled bitterly and shook her head. Neither. Zuoxiao Duo is actually the Sky Surveyor throne's biological son, the only son of the first wife. What? What did you say? The man could no longer maintain his composure. He stood up abruptly, almost knocking over the coffee table in front of him. The woman was already prepared for this reaction. She reached out a hand and held the coffee table firmly. Biological son? Are you serious? The man's face was instantly covered in white sweat. His eyes were filled with fear. Yes, that's right, the woman said with certainty. Looking at the man's reaction, The woman did not have the slightest intention of mocking him. This was because when she first received the news, her reaction was almost exactly the same as this man's. In fact, it was even worse than this man's. She had almost wet her pants on the spot. That remote little city actually hid the Sky Surveyor throne. This was super shocking news that would make one's eyeballs pop out. After a long time, the man was still trembling. She could not help but say, "I know this news is very unexpected, but you don't have to be shocked for so long." Although she had almost wet her pants, she had not been shocked for so long. The man smiled bitterly. "You don't know." He sat back in his chair in a daze. His fear was still lingering as he said, "So, Zhuoxiaoduo's father is that middle-aged man from Phoenix City, Zhuochanglu? In other words, Zhuochanglu is the Sky Surveyor throne?" The woman said with certainty. The man's entire body began to tremble again. He was shivering, and layers of cold sweat were dripping down his back. "What's wrong with you?" The woman realized that something was wrong. This reaction was clearly too much. "I met him once in Phoenix City. I remember now." The man's eyes stared straight ahead. "At that time, I even had thoughts of killing him." Hearing this, a layer of white sweat instantly appeared on the woman's body. Her pretty eyes widened. "You wanted to kill him?" His voice was hoarse and filled with disbelief. At this moment, the woman's heart was even filled with admiration. Even in his wildest dreams, he hadn't expected that this guy in front of him would have the guts to make a move against the sky inspecting minister. "Do you know that with a single breath, you'll be reduced to ashes? And then, after that, I don't know why, but I didn't make a move. After that, I was vexed for a long time, feeling that I had wasted an excellent opportunity. Now it seems..." The man's sweat hung on the tip of his nose, sparkling. It was too frightening. It was too horrifying. It turned out that I had thought of such an awesome plan. The woman in front of him thought about that scene for a while. Although she was shocked, she couldn't help but feel that it was ridiculous. Finally, she laughed and said, "Ever since I left Phoenix City until just now, I've never really admired you. But today, I've decided that you'll be my idol from now on." "Ching-ching. Don't make fun of me." The man smiled bitterly as he wiped his sweat. The man was Meng Chintian, and the woman was Ning Qingqing, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. The two of them were old acquaintances. Today, they were old friends who empathized with each other. In the battle of the soul-washing battle with the Phoenix Vein, the Ning clan and the Meng clan were doomed eternally. The Meng clan was completely wiped out, and the Ning clan lost an entire household register. Only Meng Chintian and Ning Qingqing survived. These two people didn't really have the bloodline of the Meng clan and the Ning clan, so they were lucky enough to escape. Ning Qingqing had tried her best to find her biological father, but she couldn't find him. However, in the process of her search, she met Meng Chintian in Shangjing. Although the two of them weren't very familiar with each other in Phoenix City, and Ning Qingqing didn't have a good impression of Meng Chintian, meeting an old friend in a foreign land made them acquaintances. Especially when the two of them had a grudge against the siblings Zhuoxiaoduo and Zhuoxiaonian, they naturally got together. After that, the two of them gathered all the clues and verified each other bit by bit. Plus, after the Phoenix Pulse soul-washing battle, a lot of information couldn't be hidden anymore that the two of them finally locked onto the enemy who had destroyed their families. That was Zhuoxiaoduo. Now, as long as this name was mentioned, the two of them would gnash their teeth in hatred. In this way, the following matter became more and more logical. Meng Chintian successfully developed Ning Qingqing as his underling. Ning Qingqing didn't ask for anything else. She only wanted one thing: to avenge the Ning clan. To kill Zhuoxiaoduo. Although her cultivation wasn't very high, and she didn't have a master to guide her after leaving Phoenix City, Ning Qingqing's gorgeous face had become her greatest weapon. A beauty with a face score of 97 and above, how much destructive power could she create? It was really unimaginable. If Ning Qingqing was just an ordinary person, it would be fine. This was because ordinary people couldn't withstand the conquest of cultivators. However, Ning Qingqing's talent was a genuine genius. She just lacked the opportunity to go further. Since reuniting with Meng Qintian, her cultivation had improved very quickly. Now, she was already at the cloud transformation realm. This was already a very fast and shocking increase in cultivation. After all, not everyone could compare with the people in Zhuxiaoduo's team. In fact, strictly speaking, Ning Qingqing was 97 astral souls. She had a pure yin physique. In terms of talent, she was even above Wanli Xiu, Gao Xiu, Dugian, and Zhen Piapiao. In addition, Ning Qingqing came from a big family. She had a natural, graceful, and luxurious temperament. Dealing with some martial artist men was just too easy. As long as there was a motive, Ning Qingqing would never fail. She would wander among these men to obtain the information she wanted and obtain the things she wanted. However, in the end, she would be able to maintain her purity and not let anyone take advantage of her. She would also be able to let every man feel that this girl had fallen in love with them, that this required a very high EQ, a very high IQ, a very high appearance, and a very high skill. It could only be achieved by combining all these factors together. Looking at Zhuxiaoduo's team, even Gao Qiao, who was also known for her EQ, might not be able to achieve this. This was because Gao Qiao disdained to deal with men. However, to Ning Qingqing it was not a problem at all. She was like a fish in water. This time, dealing with Zhuxiaoduo and creating the Heavenly Tao formation, Ning Qingqing was even more devoted to it. She wanted to eliminate this great enemy who had ruined the first half of her life. The biggest problem now is that the Wang family has already regretted it. After knowing Zhuxiaoduo's true identity, even if they were given 100 guts, they would not dare to touch Zhuxiaoduo. Ning Qingqing said, "Now, the other allied families of the Wang family are also anxious. Not to mention killing Zhuxiaoduo, they even want to kneel in front of Zhuxiaoduo's door. This is extremely disadvantageous to our plan." Ning Qingqing was very worried. At this point, can they stop just because they want to? Meng Qintian sneered, "It's not up to them anymore." "What do you mean?" "The dragons are about to seize the veins. The veins of the earth do not care if you regret it or not. When it's time to erupt, it will erupt. And the veins of the heavens will not care if they regret it. The Heavenly Tao formation will not care even if they regret it. Since the formation has been formed, they will enter this formation no matter what." Meng Qintian said lightly, "It's not up to them anymore." "The head of the Wang family wants to see the master again," Ning Qingqing said. "Refuse. Just say." Meng Qintian stopped halfway and said, "Let me ask my uncle first. See how to—" That night, Wang Han received a letter. It was a letter from the master. There was no signature, just a few very ordinary sentences. "Brave warriors are reborn from death. Phoenixes are glorious because of nirvana. Aristocratic families rise through crisis. Heroes can only stand out in troubled times. Today, there are great changes. The 6 continents are about to return. Wherever the sun shines, there will be a reshuffle. The great waves wash away the sand. This is the time. There is no way out. There is only a slim chance of survival. The mysteries of heaven are hard to predict. The great Tao is 50, and the heavens have 49. Whether or not the future can be seen depends on this. If you retreat, you will be doomed. If you advance, you will die. You can choose. For those outside the world, the mysteries of heaven are not something I can predict. Today, this book is out. The only thing left is to cherish it. Perhaps there will be a day when I can drink with the descendants of the master." Just a few short sentences. It was a thin sheet of paper. Wang Han and Wang Zhong stared at the handwriting on the paper, only to feel their fingers tighten. Both of them were short of breath, and their faces were gloomy. "Wang Zhong, if we retreat now, what will happen to the Wang family?" Wang Han seemed to be asking Wang Zhong, but it also seemed like he was asking himself. "The Wang family will cease to exist. Perhaps we can preserve some of the children. But above 1 meter, regardless of gender, they will all be doomed," Wang Zhong answered quickly. This was an obvious fact. It was already the honor of the god of war to preserve a few children to continue the bloodline. Otherwise, even the children would be eradicated. What if we advance further? Wang Han's eyes burned with madness. If we lose, we will be doomed. Perhaps we can preserve a few children. It is the blessing of the ancestors. But the death of the others can also be foreseen. Wang Zhong said, "What if we win?" Wang Han asked, "Even if we win, we will have to hold on until the 6 continents return. At that time, the world will be in chaos. Countless masters will flock here. Even the minister may not be able to resist." Wang Zhong said lightly, "Even the masters who are reigning now will suffer heavy casualties in the first wave." Chapter 12:34. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Neither choice was right, so what choice should he make? Wang Han stared at Wang Zhong, and Wang Zhong stared back at his elder brother. Both of them looked at each other and saw the despair in each other's eyes slowly brighten up. That was enough. There was no need to explain further. Only the two of them knew clearly in their hearts. The situation was obvious now. The only chance for the Wang clan to survive was the dragons fighting over the veins. As long as the Wang clan, no, it didn't have to be the Wang clan. As long as someone or some force killed Zhuoxiao duo in the dragons fighting over the veins, then they only needed to hold on for a few days or hide for a few days, and the situation would be reversed. Because after the dragons fighting over the veins ended, a large amount of luck would be taken by the Wang clan, and the Wang clan's luck would increase dramatically. And the remaining luck would belong to the demon star, which would cause the noble spirit to soar to the stars. With such an obvious beacon navigation, the demon clan would return soon. Even if they didn't return with the continent, those peak experts would set foot on the continent before the continent returned. And when that time came, the heaven-inspecting minister couple wouldn't be able to care about the Wang clan. If this hope could come true, then the Wang family would be able to escape death from that point in time and have a chance to live again. In summary, there was only one prerequisite. The Wang clan had to be able to hold on until the experts of the demon clan or other races set foot on the continent. Wang Han gritted his teeth and clutched the piece of paper tightly. He muttered, "Victory or defeat, advancing or retreating, the result is the same. So why not advance? Choose the only way to survive. After I die, even if the flood overflows, as long as I can survive, what can I do?" Wang Zhong sighed softly. Now, there was really no way to advance or retreat. Life and death were in a dilemma. He had already done everything he could. Now, he could only entrust everything to others. That at this moment, Wang Han suddenly felt a burning sensation in his palm. That piece of paper had actually started to burn silently. In the blink of an eye, there was only a handful of ash in his hand, and nothing else. Wang Han looked at the ashes in his hand and suddenly came to a realization. He said in a deep voice, "This is probably the great master reminding us that although some things have been done, as long as there are no traces left behind, everything is still possible. It's better to be known than seen by others." Wang Zhong smiled bitterly and said, "Perhaps this master just doesn't want to leave behind any traces related to him. That's all. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Every step is a game of chess. It all depends on how you interpret it. Follow your heart. Everything is like that." Wang Han patted Wang Zhong's shoulder. "Second brother, I know you've made some arrangements, but now that we're at a dead end, it's good to have another choice. I'm going to give it a try." Wang Zhong sighed and said, "If there are no accidents, regardless of success or failure, both of us will die." Wang Han lowered his head and said, "How can I not know what you're talking about? But even if we stop now, do you think we won't die? We'll still die." The two brothers looked at each other and saw the burning flames in each other's eyes. They said almost in unison, "Then let's give it a try. After I die, I don't care about the flood. As long as I can live, there's nothing I can't do." Wang Zhong walked out of the study. He hadn't felt his blood boil for a long time, but at this moment, it surged through his body. "Then let's give it a try. Let's give it a try. In life, who wouldn't give it a try? How could one survive if they didn't give it a try?" Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew. His heated brain slowly cooled down. When he returned to his study, he was suddenly stunned. He stood there in a daze. He was thinking about this matter, the whole thing, the whole process. For a moment he was puzzled and confused. Why was it like this? Give it a try? Give it a try? Not to mention what he was going to give it a try? So what if he succeeded? Even if he succeeded, he would still go down in infamy for thousands of years? There seemed to be something wrong with this. Because before today, he clearly had the intention to retreat. Even if he would be torn apart by 5 horses if he turned back and admitted his guilt, he still turned back. Turn back and be saved. Since it was the last moment and he would die no matter what, as long as he turned back, he might as well do his best to protect the reputation of his ancestor, the god of war. It was the greatest virtue to know one's mistakes and to face death calmly. Finally, his surname was Wang and he was once bathed in the glory of the god of war. But why did he make up his mind to give it a try just now? He turned back and wanted to go back to find Wang Han. This decision didn't seem right. But when he was about to go out, he suddenly felt dizzy. Maybe. It's not a bad thing to give it a try. Anyway, there's no worse result than now. Wang Zhong was in a daze for a moment and said blankly. 2 days later, Ancestral Dragon High Martial Arts and the Martial Arts Department released the list of people who would enter the Dragon's fight for the heritage this time. Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts, Zhuo Duo, Li Chenglong, Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing, Gao Qiaoer, Zhen Piapiao, Pai Yibao, Ying. Dragon's Soul High Martial Arts, Li Zhongming. Jade's Sun High Martial Arts, Yu Moyan, Dugian. High Martial Arts, Long Yuxing, Wan Li Xiu, Zhou Yunqing. 9 Heavens Pavilion, Zhuo Xiaonian. Ancestral Dragon High Martial Arts, Lan Bingrui, Chen Xiaotian, Cheng Qingning, Meng Yuanhang, Kong Yunshang, Wang Zilong, Wang Ziyun, Jun Haoren, Jun Zhangtai, Jun Onmin, Wan Shueishan. In addition to the other miscellaneous places, there were a total of 50 people. And this list was quite different from the list of 30 people announced previously. But none of those families dared to hide their names. All of them gave up on the hidden rules of this competition. Everything was decided based on the true strength of the students. Therefore, in terms of transparency, this year's Dragon Scramble for Heritage could be said to be the fairest Dragon Scramble for Heritage in the past 3,000 years. In terms of the strength of the students, it was also a year of dazzling stars and gathering geniuses. In the past, the cultivation of the students in this year's Dragon Scramble for Heritage was basically the peak of the students' cultivation, and most of them were at the early stage of the profound realm. But this time, not only were there students in the Skysoar realm, there were even a terrifying 21 of them. Such an explosive number of geniuses was really unprecedented. Among them, the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts was the most dazzling and eye-catching. When Xingtian, Yi Changqing, and the others saw the list, they were almost crying tears of joy. Based on their best judgment, the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts could only have 1 or 2 people enter the Dragon Scramble for Heritage. They didn't expect so many people to be selected. Looking at the names on the list, other than the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts, there were also Skysoar Realm cultivators. How could the higher-ups of the school not be excited? Yi Changqing's tears flowed down his face. With this year's glory, the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts could really be hidden dragons that could soar into the sky and look down on the world. As this year's headmaster and teacher, Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian couldn't hold back their excitement. But the two of them still pretended to be indifferent and solemn as they accepted the congratulations of the crowd. Their expressions didn't seem to be very happy. They acted very steady, very dignified, and very indifferent. Everyone praised them one after another, as expected of the teachers and headmasters of so many genius students. Then, the two of them calmly left the school and arrived at Yi Changqing's villa. They quickened their pace and entered the villa's secret room. When Xingtian let out a loud roar and jumped into the arena. He roared, "Yi Changqing, let's fight." Yi Changqing impatiently rushed forward. "I'm in a good mood today. I'm going to beat you to death. I'm the one who's going to beat you to death." The two of them excitedly and crazily fought each other. They didn't dodge at all. Their fists landed on each other's flesh. This kind of battle lasted for an entire afternoon. If they couldn't vent to their heart's content during such a joyous occasion, it would really be unbearable. In the end, Yi Chongqing rode on top of Wen Xingtian and pressed down on the mud like Wen Xingtian. He punched him again and asked, "Are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy?" Wen Xingtian was beaten up until his nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He shouted excitedly, "Happy! Happy! Continue, use all your strength." Vice Principal Liu and Xiang Quangren, who had rushed over after hearing the news, stood at the door. Their faces were cold as they listened to this strange conversation. They couldn't watch it anymore. They really couldn't watch it anymore. Jade Sun High Martial Arts and Dragon Soul High Martial Arts were also in high spirits. This was also the first time since the establishment of their schools that a student had entered the ranks of the dragons fighting for the heritage. The joy of these two schools was equally crazy. This was a moment that made history. As for Zhuoxiao Duo and the others' alma maters, such as Garrison First High School, Water City First High School, and Phoenix City Second High School, colorful flags fluttered and firecrackers sounded. Hu Ruoyun was so excited that tears streamed down her face. As soon as she received the news, she brought the offerings and went to He Yuanyue's grave with Li Changjiang. At this time, Sun Fengho and Jiang Zhangbin were one step ahead of the two of them. "Old principal, your wish has come true. And it's more than fulfilled." In the newspaper and screenshots, the others were all wearing the formal school uniforms of their respective high martial arts schools. Only Zhuoxiao Duo and the others from Phoenix City's second high school were wearing the Snow White Hidden Dragon High School's martial arts robes. However, under the Hidden Dragon High School's emblem, there were not only the red embroidered words of Hidden Dragon High School, but there were also a few people who wrote the words themselves, Phoenix City's Second High. The words were the same size as the 4 words of Hidden Dragon High School. Hu Ruoyun stroked the 5 words on the photo. Her heart was filled with mixed feelings and tears fell like rain. The principal of Water City First High School, Gu Qianfan, was holding a big banquet to celebrate. He was celebrating while watching the news and newspapers with a smile on his face. However, when he saw the eye-catching handwriting on Zhuoxiao Duo and the others' uniforms, he suddenly fell silent. His old face instantly turned red. He said shyly, "Let's go." Everyone was dumbfounded. It was supposed to be a good day to drink until they were satisfied. How could it be that Zhou Yunqing immediately understood the situation and his face was full of shame? He bowed and apologized, "Old principal, I'm sorry. I really forgot. I was too excited." Gu Qianfan sighed. "It's not your fault. I was envious of He Yuanyue. Gu Qianfan, may be better than He Yuanyue in terms of cultivation, martial arts, and connections, but when it comes to educating people and educating them, compared to Principal He, there's a world of difference. I'm not as good as her." Chapter 12:35. The day of the dragon race for the heritage was getting closer and closer. All parties were making preparations in full swing, and their enthusiasm was unprecedentedly high. At this moment, a thick fog suddenly appeared at the location where the Earth heritage rose. Starlight flickered inside, demonic aura filled the air, and demonic flames filled the sky. After the fog covered the sky, people who were not related to the matter could no longer enter this area. As for the so-called related people, they were the owners of the 50 dragon vein tokens in their hands. As for the others, they were no longer able to enter. Those who tried their best to act rashly were going against the heavenly Tao. Therefore, no one knew what had happened inside. The martial artists of Ancestral Dragon Academy had experienced the dragon race for the heritage many times before, but they only knew that the fog was the mysterious space where the dragon race for the heritage took place. However, this was the first time they saw such a strange phenomenon. Previously, there was no starlight, no demonic aura, and no surging life force. Tomorrow it was the day of the dragon race for the heritage. Are you ready? Have you brought everything you need? Check again. All the places where the students participating in the dragon race for the heritage were filled with such voices. The atmosphere seemed to be no different from the day before the college entrance examination before the disaster. After entering, it's just a fight for providence. There won't be any danger to your life. If you can't do it, don't force yourself. Although providence is good, it's only meaningful if you're alive to enjoy it. Yes. In Zhuoxiaonian's small courtyard, Zhuo Duo and the others were also receiving instructions. However, the people who were giving instructions were different, or rather, a little different. Many families sent notes to him, stating all the things he needed to pay attention to. There were also some family members who had participated in the dragons fighting for the heritage. They even wrote down their insights and the environment after entering in detail and handed them over. Department head Ding of the martial arts department came personally. In addition, the principal of Ancestral Dragon Academy and teacher Ding Rulin all came to explain in detail the precautions and the many incidents in the past. This time, there's great danger inside. It's different from before. You must pay attention to your own safety, especially the Wang family. Those bastards will most likely do something desperate this time. Department head Ding said in a low voice. Wang Lingyun sat at the side and rolled her eyes. Then, she picked up a book to read as if nothing had happened. But in his heart, he muttered, "This kid is most likely the descendant of little dog Ding. He looks like a damn puppy." Although Wang Lingyun had already severed ties with the Wang family, this old man had a new sensitive problem. As long as someone scolded the Wang family, he would instinctively feel that they were scolding him, Wang Lingyun. He subconsciously replaced the two words Wang clan with Wang Lingyun. How could his face not be burning with embarrassment? However, there were too many people coming and going, and Zhuo Duo was already tired of it. He simply instructed Wang Lingyun, "You look after the house. We're going to cultivate. Then you must come back before 6:00 tomorrow morning." Wang Lingyun said. "Understood, understood. Don't forget, we have to be at Ancestral Dragon High School at 8. This was a group of dragons fighting for a vein. Time waits for no one." "Understood, understood. Little uncle, don't forget. And you guys, remind each other to pay attention to the time. This is a matter of a lifetime." Wang Lingyun nagged. Everyone hurriedly fled. The feeling of having calluses in their ears was so scary. The second day, which was also the day of the group of dragons fighting for a vein, finally arrived. Ancestral Dragon High School was filled with a sea of people. Red flags fluttered, colorful flags fluttered, and the sound of firecrackers roared incessantly. The rumbling noise went straight to the sky. The group of dragons fighting for a vein. The long-awaited 20th of May finally arrived. The 50 people who participated in this event were already in place. Well, it should be said that they were escorted by the people in charge of the various universities, including the principals and several vice principals, as well as the class teachers of the students who participated in the group of dragons fighting for a vein, such as Wen Xingtian and so on. And the class teacher who produced the most geniuses this time was surprisingly Wen Xingtian, the class teacher of Wen University. Wen Xingtian's face was already smiling like a brilliant sunflower. There was no sign of the 100,000 slaughterers from before. His face was obviously stiff from smiling, but he was still laughing endlessly. Well, when Xingtian was being interviewed at this time, of course, the media would come to join in the fun at such a grand event. It had always been like this in Shangjing. Zhuo Duo and the others were curling their lips at the side, and there was a question mark above everyone's head. The current teacher Wen, no matter how you look at it, is this really our teacher Wen? It's nothing. Haha, actually, it's the children who worked hard. I'm just a guide. The so-called credit is just hard work. It's not worth mentioning, ha. Yes, each of these children is very outstanding. Not only are they outstanding, but they also know how to work hard to achieve today's results. Haha. Happy, huh? So happy. It's true, it's all the children's credit. They worked very hard, each of them worked very hard, and each of them worked very hard. Huh. Corporal punishment? No, I pay attention to teaching by word and example. When have I ever hit or scolded my students? A teacher who is good at teaching is used to convincing people with reason. The children are very obedient and have a high awareness. With just a few words, they understand everything. There's no need for corporal punishment. Corporal punishment is a sign of the teacher's incompetence. When Xingtian continued to brag, he talked so much that even he almost believed it. It was as if he had taught like this in the past. Zuoxiao Duo, Li Chenglong, and the others were all expressionless, but they secretly touched their buttocks. Teacher Wen, how can you say something like this? Doesn't your conscience hurt? In this group of people, including the girls, who hasn't been beaten by you before? Zuoxiao Duo? Outstanding, outstanding. This child is the most outstanding, most diligent, most hardworking, and also the most talented child I've ever taught. He's very sensible and never let the teachers worry about him. To him, it's just a normal matter. Yes, I didn't know his identity at that time. Yes, Zuoxiao Duo is the most united with his classmates in school. He's charitable, friendly, kind, honest, upright, and open. He often shares good things with his friends and shares the good things with them. That's why he's able to make so many friends. Yes, that's how he is. He's really a good child. When Xingtian directly flattered him as soon as he opened his mouth. Li Chenglong's expression was distorted. What's wrong with you? Weren't you fine just now? Do you think that Teacher Wen's evaluation of me is wrong? Is it not accurate? Zuoxiao Duo asked with a dangerous expression. His tone was meaningful. You should think about it carefully. The breakfast I had in the morning seemed a little strange. Of course, Teacher Wen's evaluation of Zua is the truest. Li Chenglong said with a bitter face and wiped away his conscience. Long Yuxing and the others, who also wiped away their conscience, nodded in agreement. Just now, they really wanted to vomit after this incident. They must ask Teacher Wen Xingtian face to face. How did you think of those words when you praised Zuoxiao Duo? Where is your heart? Where is your face? Teacher Wen, ask yourself, which of those words you said can be used on Zuoxiao Duo, this big bastard? Even if there is a little bit of it? On the other side, when Xingtian was still bragging, after he finished praising Zuoxiao Duo, he began to praise Li Chenglong. He said that he was a generation's military advisor, that he was knowledgeable, that he was talented, that he was wise, that he could do what others could not, etc. But it was still within the basic range. Anyway, he was much more reliable than Zuoxiao Duo. After that, he would talk about Xiang Chong, Xiang Bingpi, Yi Bao, Zhen Piapiao, Yin, Gao Qiao, and the others. In short, this batch of students was well-rounded in moral, intellectual, physical, aesthetic, and labor. They were outstanding in culture and martial arts. They were kind, cute, hardworking, loyal, generous, and reliable that according to Wen Xingtian's words, even if these students were regarded as national models and national stars, it would be a waste of their talents. They should be directly conferred the title of Heavenly King, or at least be a Heavenly King in preparation. That was the way to go. The face of the reporter in charge of the interview was already stiff from smiling. His hand that was holding the microphone was also sore. And this Teacher Wen, who was said to be 100,000 butcher, and used to be a cold-faced killer, was still talking non-stop with a face full of excitement, saying, "Don't go until I'm done." Finally, thunderous applause sounded. The leaders of the various departments and the royal family had arrived. The ceremony had begun. Only then did the reporter escape from 100,000 butcher, who still wanted to continue, as if he had been granted amnesty after listening to the passionate speeches of the leaders. Each of them spoke very briefly. After all, there was not much time left for them. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. At the center of the area where the dragons were fighting for the heritage, a thick fog that was so thick that it was almost solid gushed out. A passage that was dazzling with stars slowly materialized from nothingness. The passage has appeared. With this command, the entire place was silent. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Many of the students of the right age present looked at this passage with eyes full of envy and jealousy. This was the path to heaven. Unfortunately, they were not qualified to step on it and take large strides forward. However, the faces of the higher-ups who were familiar with the process of the dragons fighting for the heritage changed at the same time. In the past, there had never been such a dazzling starlight. There was only a passage that looked like a black passage. Why was the starlight so resplendent and dazzling this time? There must be something different about it. After you enter, the most important thing is to be careful. When the energy of the dragon surges, you must act according to your capabilities. Also, everyone is a part of the astral soul's human race. When you are in there, you must not fight or kill each other. Understood. All the students agreed in unison. At this moment, the passage had completely materialized. The starlight on the passage became even more dazzling. Prepare to enter, Minister Ding shouted. Chapter 12:36. Each of the 50 people took out their own token. This was the certificate to pass through the cave entrance. Everyone had one, so it was useless. The students of Ancestral Dragon High School, who were at the front, were about to step in when they suddenly saw the wind and clouds gathering in the sky. Countless dark clouds surged and filled the sky from all sides, instantly covering the sky completely. As a result, the whole world instantly turned from a clear sky to a dark sky. It was difficult to see far. After a few more breaths, a few big stars in the sky seemed to be falling from the sky. With an unprecedented extreme brightness, they flickered. Big Dipper. Big Dipper 6 stars. Demonic aura suddenly filled the air. Demonic fog suddenly rose, as if in the endless dark clouds, there seemed to be a group of demons dancing, bewitching all living beings. Amidst the roaring thunder, the entrance of the dragon's snatching vein emitted an even more dazzling light. Without any warning, it directly shone on the dragon vein tokens in the hands of the 50 people. Enter! Minister Ding made a prompt decision and shouted. Lan Bingrue, who was at the front, jumped up without hesitation. Dressed in white, she was like a fairy walking on waves. She took the lead and entered the cave entrance, disappearing. Almost at the same time, everyone entered one by one, fighting to be the first. When it was Zhuoxiao's turn, Minister Ding transmitted his voice. Safety first. Go. Zhuoxiao duo nodded and jumped up side by side with Zhuoxiaonian, one black and one white. At this moment, in the dark clouds in the sky, there were suddenly dragons flying and phoenixes dancing. The dark clouds rolled, exceeding the heavens and the world. The two figures disappeared into the starry cave entrance. Let's go! Li Chenglong shouted. The 12 of them divided into 4 rows, 3 by 3, 3 by 3, and flew into the cave entrance in an orderly manner. The group of people entered in unison, without the slightest difference in speed. Minister Ding, the principal of Ancestral Dragon High School, and the others who knew about the dragon's snatching vein had their eyes lit up. The entrance of the dragon's snatching vein cave has always been the starting point of everyone's battle. It is also the prelude of this battle. But if there are people entering together, there must be multiple heads with the same mind. Could it be this is a team? Minister Ding's heart was shaken. If such a huge team of geniuses was really a team of people, then in the future, the remaining people also entered in a single file. When Zhou Yunqing entered, his entire body was surrounded by sword light. His entire body was like a sword of no return, shooting forward like a bolt of lightning. In just a moment, the 50 people who were present for this battle had already entered, and at the moment when the last person entered, the entrance of the cave suddenly turned into specks of starlight, dissipating into the thick black fog and disappearing without a trace. Let's wait. Let's see who's the first to come out. Minister Ding stood ramrod straight. His gaze and expression were solemn. There was a chair behind him, but he didn't sit down. The others didn't sit down either. At this moment, everyone was under a lot of psychological pressure. The minister's son was among the people who went in. This point was very important, perhaps unprecedentedly important. As everyone knew, the first one to come out would definitely be the one who obtained the most chi meridians and benefited the most. All the leaders were thinking about what to do if the first person to come out was not Zhuoxiao duo. It had to be said that this question was really worth considering and pondering. The moment Zhuoxiao duo entered the tunnel, he instantly felt that the tunnel was filled with some kind of mysterious energy. He tried to absorb it, but it was completely fruitless. He took a step back and flew forward hand in hand with Zhuoxiaonian beside him. Although they were flying through the tunnel, the two of them who were holding hands felt exceptionally sweet in their hearts. They couldn't help but have an impulse. Why don't we kiss in this tunnel? Zuoxiao Duo turned his head, and Zuoxiaonian also turned her head. Their gazes were filled with tenderness and sweetness. The moment they were about to take action, they felt their eyes light up. This is coming out? Quite a number of people who had already entered saw the two of them flying in hand sweetly and inexplicably felt their stomachs swell up. Under such a serious atmosphere, they were unexpectedly fed a stomach full of dog food without warning. This was simply preposterous. Three of them had a particularly complicated look in their eyes. Lan Bingrui, Chen Xiaotian, Chen Qingning. However, as more and more people came in, more and more people had this kind of complicated look in their eyes. For example, Wang Zilong, Wang Ziyun, Jun Haoren, Jun Zhangtai, Jun Onmin, Wan Shuaishan. Few people were lucky enough to escape. When Li Chenglong and the others came in, they naturally gathered around Zuoxiao Duo. Even Zhou Yunqing naturally joined this group of people. It was an obvious and unique large group of 15 people. It was a stark contrast to the situation where most of the others were in groups of 2 or 3 or fighting alone. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Zuoxiao's eyes flashed. He quickly threw out 36 Tianji orders. Just as he finished throwing them out, before he could check what was going on, an unforeseen event had already happened. Look at your feet, Li Chenglong reminded. Known as the generation's military advisor, Swollen's talents were not limited to his own talent. He was knowledgeable, meticulous, and cautious on a daily basis. Everyone instinctively looked down in the direction of the sound. He saw that the area where the 50 people were standing was shockingly within a large yellow circle. There were exactly 50 people standing properly in the circle. A dazzling circle of light stood on the ground. Under each of the 50 people's feet, there was another small circle. There was a yellow light connected to the outermost circle. At first glance, it looked complicated, but in fact, it was not messy at all. It was clear at a glance. Just as everyone noticed the circle, it suddenly started to spin. Then, it gradually rose from the ground like a huge barrel of light, enveloping the 50 people inside. As the barrel of light took shape, the small circle under everyone's feet started to spin as well. However, it was spinning in the opposite direction of the barrel of light. Moreover, the force was so great that everyone's body was spinning at high speed like a top. At the same time, a thought suddenly descended. Everyone heard this thought. Or rather, they felt it in their hearts. Dragons fight for the veins, the strong win. The weak do not deserve to have Tianji fate. Only life and death can determine survival and death. Only the strong have a future. The only supreme way is to fight. Every word was explaining the rules. You can fight, you can snatch, you can kill, and you must kill. You must kill the competitors to get the most veins and the most luck. This saying is completely different from the known saying of dragons fighting for the veins. It's completely different from the rules that the teachers, elders, and even Minister Ding said. Didn't they say that astral souls are not allowed to fight among humans? Are they not allowed to compete? But why did they tell us to fight to the death? Fight to the death? What's going on? Could it be that the rule of dragons fighting for the veins has changed? Not only Zuoxiao Duo, but the others were also puzzled that perhaps there were some who were not confused, but now everyone was in the midst of an extremely violent rotation. Even if they were close, no one could see the others' faces. Suddenly, a murderous aura gradually enveloped the entire field. In the next moment, a whistling sound suddenly sounded, and the huge barrel of light suddenly sank. In the next moment, everyone was flung out like a shooting star. No one knew where they went or how far they were sent. Zuoxiao Duo only felt that the hand that he was holding with Zuoxiaonian was forcibly separated. His whole body was spinning, and he fell into a fog. In a flash, rays of light descended from the sky and covered the entire area. Following that, an unprecedentedly ferocious aura surged into the large circle. In the blink of an eye, the murderous aura suddenly burst out. The 15 rays of starlight hidden in this murderous aura flashed and disappeared without a trace. The Heavenly Tao layout was completed. The Star Duel game was also completed. Outside, the dark clouds that covered the sun began to rotate as if they were summoned. They seemed to be one and blocked the starlight in all directions. The power of the 9 Heavenly Tao restrained each other. From now on, no one could move at all. The power of the 15 stars of the North and South Dipper could no longer descend through the clouds and affect the situation of the dragons fighting for the heritage. Yes, or it should be said that the power of the North and South Dipper had been jointly suppressed by the 9 Heavenly Tao. They had been completely deprived of the right to enter the game or interfere with the situation. They could use the Heavenly Tao to exploit the loopholes of the human race and create opportunities to intervene. They could even seize the only loopholes to sneak in. However, that was a fluke that they had fought for after a lot of planning and sacrifice. And this kind of power could not be repeated. The Heavenly Tao would never allow them to do more. However, the power of the Stargate's intervention had become a fact. The Heavenly Tao had to recognize it even if it did not. Moreover, as long as the people they injected with the power of Starlight won in the end and became the biggest winner of the dragons fighting for the heritage, then no matter how unwilling the Heavenly Tao was, it would have to go against the heavens and feed back. At that time, the starlight would rush in reverse and receive from above and below, completely breaking through the blockade and becoming the new protagonist of the world's destiny. However, if they could not, the North and South Dipper would never be able to recover from this setback and would never have the chance to rise again. Even if the demon race returned and fought for the protagonist of the world again, the 15 Star Lords would still have to remain in a half-crippled state for countless years. This was because most of their power had already been connected to the star formation and projected here. Not only their cultivation, but also the power of their souls, divine senses, and spiritual thoughts were all injected. If they did not succeed, the once famous Grand Heavenly Tao experts would at most have the combat strength of a fairy in the future. This would be an incomparably huge loss. It could be said that this was a huge gamble. If it was not a huge gamble, how would they dare to bet with the Heavenly Tao? If it was not a huge gamble, how would they be worthy of betting with the Heavenly Tao? In another secret place, the 15 leaders of the Stargate were all sitting quietly. The 15 of them were in their respective positions, forming a star formation with 15 stars. However, everyone looked very weak, as if all their essence, energy, and spirit had been sucked out. Near them were the corpses of many disciples of the Stargate. Everyone had died peacefully. Chapter 1237. So many corpses were piled high, and there were thousands of them. Every one of them was an elite disciple of the Stargate sect. Now, no one was an exception. All of them had died here. Their lives and souls had been sacrificed to the Star Monarch. If not, how would they have the chance to pry open the cracks in the Heavenly Tao layout? How would they have the chance to gamble? If the Dragon Snatching Polestar Alliance's plan succeeded, all of them would be able to become true Tao integration stage cultivators instantly. They might even be able to go one step further. This was because the power of these sacrifices would be fed back together with the immense power of Providence. But if they didn't succeed, the 15 of them would have to drag their bodies, which were even weaker than ordinary core martial artists, and escape. Furthermore, they would never be able to recover their cultivation base for the rest of their lives. The Stargate sect's plan this time could be said to be cutting off all means of retreat. However, this plan was the ultimate mission of the various Stargate sects. It was their ultimate goal. When the demon race left with the continent, they used all their means to make the Stargate sect stay. They even changed their identities and became a member of the Umno Alliance. They were under the command of the Umno Alliance that the Wu people suffered heavy casualties at that time, even more than the demon race. At the most critical moment, countless experts from the 15 Stargate sect self-detonated one after another. This could be said to have contributed greatly to the Wu people. It was also the cornerstone of the Wu people's lead over the Tao League and the Astral Souls. If not for this, the Wu people wouldn't have acknowledged the existence of the 15 Stargate sect. Even when they knew that they were up to something, they still couldn't take action against them. They even had to prevent the Astral Souls and the Tao League from targeting them. It was because of the kindness they had shown them in the past that they didn't kill them. Of course, the Wu people allowed them to pass on their legacies. At the same time, they didn't sit back and watch them grow. Otherwise, the Stargate sect wouldn't only be as powerful as they were today. They would only be able to set up traps and take advantage of the situation. Now, the day had finally arrived. They would fight against the heavens, against the 3 continents, and against the talents of this world. The most fortunate thing was that the star battle layout for the 15 Stargates had finally been completed. The 15 sect leaders felt their weak bodies. When they opened their eyes, they saw the countless corpses of their disciples. Their hearts were filled with indescribable pain. They did not dare to open their eyes again. They could not bear to see this scene of hell on earth. Even though they had long been prepared for this. Even though they knew that this day would come, and felt that they had long been heartless, but when it really came to this point, that heartbreak was still hard to restrain. There was no way to suppress it. However, they were still sitting on their star positions, using their souls to stabilize the star array. Definitely. You must succeed. The 15 of them were screaming in their hearts as they prayed with all their might. The sacrifice was too great. The power of the stars and star lords had already been injected into the dragon's seizing meridian formation. There would be 15 Dao integration stage powerful beings inside to deal with Zuoshao Duo and the others. 15 Dao integration pinnacle stage cultivators. This level of cultivation had already surpassed the upper limit of the rules of the dragon's snatching pulse. This was because the participants of the dragon's snatching pulse had to be below the Dao integration stage. However, the star battle layout used the immense power of the stars to forcefully pry open the gaps and inject copious amounts of elemental energy. This caused the 15 people who were not Dao integration stage to be forcefully elevated to the Dao integration stage under the Star Lord's combination. Among these 15 people, some were not even fairy realm cultivators when they entered. This was to use the power that surpassed the rules to deal with those who were within the rules. Otherwise, how could there be any planning or planning? In such a situation where the strong were bullying the weak and the strong were suppressing the weak, how could they not win? How could they not win? Hence, this round was very stable, that outside Shangjing City. In the white cloud grass hut, Mr. Bai was calmly packing his things. Although he said he was packing, most of his things were actually untouched. The furnishings in the room were as usual. He walked out of the grass hut in his white robe. A few children bowed respectfully. Mr. All right, you guys take good care of the house. I'm going to travel in the mountains. I'll be back in 3 to 5 days, or 5 to 7 days. Yes, mister. By Yunting, going out to travel had long become a habit. Basically, he would go out once in a while. However, every time he went out, he would instruct the children like this. They were also used to it and it had become a habit. If someone comes to look for me, Bai Yunting asked with a smile. Yes, mister, you'll be back in 3 to 5 days, or 5 to 7 days. If you have any requests, you can leave a brocade pouch. If you're free, you can wait here for a few days. You can come back after 5 to 7 days. The children replied obediently. All right, not bad. Bai Yunting laughed heartily. He looked very carefree. Then, he took out some delicious food, fun things, and some resources for cultivation. He also took out a few bottles of elixirs. He reminded them earnestly, don't be naughty at home. Remember to cultivate well. Do you understand? In the future, you must be someone useful to the continent. Thank you, mister. Well, remember. The children were filled with gratitude. The elixirs are used to strengthen the body. Give some to Uncle Lee and the others. Don't take all of it. Bai Yunting smiled very kindly. His face was full of joy. Don't worry, mister. I won't. Yes, after I left, I've already placed the incense in my room. On the first day, I'll light the first batch. On the second day, I'll light the second batch. What about the third day? Bai Yunting asked with a smile. I'll light the third batch. The children replied excitedly. Yes, correct. When will it be? Noon. Ah, good. Obedient. Bai Yunting laughed loudly. His body floated up like a white cloud and flew off into the distance. When he was far away, he turned around and saw that the boys were still staring at him. He smiled and waved his hand. Then, his body disappeared into the clouds like a white cloud and disappeared. Mr. is really something. Every time he leaves for a few days, he has to joke with us like this. Who wouldn't remember such a small thing? A boy said with a smile. It's rare for Mr. to treat us so well. You're still not satisfied. I know, but we're not children anymore. Tisk, you're not a child. Take off your pants and let me see. Do you have hair? Don't come over. After a short while, the children were already in a mess. They were laughing and chatting happily. It was peaceful. On the first day of Bai Yunting's departure. At noon, the first batch of incense was lit by the child. On the second day of Bai Yunting's departure, the second batch of incense was lit by the child. On the third day of Bai Yunting's departure, the third batch of incense was lit by the child. Just like that, an hour later, there was suddenly a burst of thick smoke. The children were surprised and did not know where the change came from. Suddenly, there was a landslide and a flame that shot into the sky. It was a volcano that erupted without warning. It erupted from the Bai Yunting's room and shot into the sky. Once it erupted, it was a terrifying sign of extinction. On the mountain where the Bai Yunting grass hut was located, no one survived, be it humans or animals. The children were the first to bear the brunt and had long been turned into charcoal. The scorching hot magma mixed with the extremely powerful eruption force shot up more than 2,000 meters into the sky and penetrated the clouds formed by the power of the 9 heavenly Taos. It continued to erupt and rush up. A gap was formed in the thick dark clouds in the sky. It was not until the volcano stopped erupting after an hour that the gap closed again. However, after this change, another inexplicable force took action that the mysteries of the heavens were disturbed again. The original path of the mysteries of the heavens was returned to chaos and could no longer be traced. On the other side of the horizon was the interior of the Umno Alliance. Bai Yunting, who was dressed in white and looked like an immortal, stood at the peak of the mountain and sighed softly. I'm really sorry. You are all my good children. It's a pity. I'm not blessed. Before he finished speaking, he had already floated down from the peak of the mountain and was heading towards the interior, towards the location of the Flood Palace. After a moment of dizziness, Zhuo Duo, who had quickly regained his consciousness, opened his eyes immediately. He realized that he was already standing on top of a mountain, and in front of him stood a young man. The young man opposite him was tall and straight. He was dressed in white and had the school emblem of the ancestral Dragon High School pinned on it. At this moment, his eyes were bright and his hands were behind his back. He had a graceful bearing and was sizing up Zhuo Duo with a faint smile. Between the two of them, the Qi meridian surged and circulated. A golden luck dragon that had already taken shape and had a color was surging up from the ground. The golden dragon turned its head and saw Zhuo Duo at first glance. Then, it shook its head and wagged its tail, intending to head towards Zhuo Duo. Obviously, although this aura dragon did not have the intelligence of a divine sense, it would still instinctively choose to attach itself to the person with the strongest aura. However, before the aura dragon could move, the young man in white on the opposite mountain suddenly raised his hand. A ray of starlight rushed out and suppressed the aura dragon to the point that it could not move. The young man's figure slowly floated up in the air. He said indifferently, Zhuo Duo, the son of the minister, you are indeed extraordinary and full of aura. I didn't expect to meet you here. I wonder if you know who I am, young Master Zhuo? Zhuo Duo frowned. Myriad Waters Mountain? Yes and no. I am Myriad Waters Mountain, but I am no longer the Myriad Waters Mountain of the past. The young man put his hands behind his back and said arrogantly, Starlight has entered my body, and the Lord of Stars has entered my body. I am already the chosen one. Although killing the son of the minister will cause endless trouble in the future, it is still a great opportunity to kill you here. After all, everyone wants to walk to the end and embark on the great Tao. Since the Lord of Stars has chosen me, I am naturally the chosen one who is blessed by the heavens. Zhuo Duo, young Master Zhuo, your luck is really not that good. Wan Shuaishan's face was full of smiles, but his words were a declaration that Zhou Xiaoduo was about to die. Zhou Xiaoduo ignored Wan Shuaishan's provocation and flipped through the heavenly secret order. He instantly understood. Wan Shuaishan was a genius student of the ancestral dragon martial arts school. He was born in the astral soul's continent. He was naturally intelligent and unruly. In the ancestral dragon martial arts school, he had always considered himself the #1 genius in the continent. He was arrogant and looked down on everyone else. However, it was also because of this that he looked down on Zhou Xiaoduo. He thought that Zhou Xiaoduo was only able to receive such preferential treatment because of his father's status. So what if his cultivation speed is fast? Isn't it just because he has a good father? If my father is the sky inspecting minister, I will be faster than him. Chapter 12:38. In Wan Shuaishan's opinion, since his father was the sky inspecting minister, what was so strange about Zhou Xiaoduo's current achievements? It was just a deformed product of countless high-quality resources. Who knew how many resources these rich and powerful second-generation officials had snatched away from us? It was probably because of this that this kind of personality, as well as the envy, jealousy, and hatred towards Zhou Xiaoduo deep in his heart, caused this genius student, who ancestral Gragon was proud of, to develop an indescribable hatred towards Zhou Xiaoduo in his heart. Therefore, when the Celestial Lord descended, he was naturally chosen when there were not enough people in the Stargate sect. And this opportunity was tantamount to a windfall for Wan Shuaishan. His cultivation level was only at the early stage of the profound returning realm. How could he dare to fight against Zhou Xiaoduo? However, with the possession of the Celestial Lord, he had the power of the Dao integration stage. What kind of concept was this? This was clearly the heavens helping him defeat Zhou Xiaoduo, showing that he was the chosen one. This was the true gift of the heavens. In today's society, all kinds of novels were emerging endlessly. There were portable grandpas, portable treasures, and so on. Everyone had already read a lot of them. It was almost as if they were everywhere. At this moment, to Wan Shuaishan, this was his cheat. He had ascended to the throne of the Son of Providence in one fell swoop. From now on, he would be the main character. All the beauties in this world, all the treasures in this world, they were all his. They were all his. How could there be anything else to say? Who would have thought that a Celestial Lord's power could be so powerful? He even had so many Dharma spells and such profound divine abilities. Please possess me, Celestial Lord, and kill Zhou Xiaoduo. Wan Shuaishan bowed respectfully to the sky. Before he finished speaking, a burst of starlight flashed, and Wan Shuaishan's aura instantly changed. It was thick and magnificent, as if he was with the heavens. He was a completely different person from before. Zhou Xiaoduo, kill yourself. I'll leave you with an intact corpse. Zhou Xiaoduo coughed and said, I haven't asked, which of the Celestial Lords are you? Wan Shuaishan said, I'm the Great Gate Celestial Lord. Zhou Xiaoduo said indifferently, the Great Gate Celestial Lord. Ancient times, Heavenly Jade, the second star of the Big Dipper, the Dark Star. As expected, the moment the Great Celestial Lord appeared, there was life and death, right and wrong. The ancients did not lie. The Great Celestial Lord said, You are quite knowledgeable. Since you know of this Star Lord's reputation, why don't you just kill yourself? Do you want this Star Lord to do it personally? At that time, you, Celestial Lord, blamed Celestial Lord, Celestial Lord, Celestial Lord. Zhou Xiaoduo's face was filled with helplessness as he said faintly, I'm a person who won't shed tears until I see the coffin. If I hurt myself, it will inevitably be more painful than a normal fight. I'll have to trouble Star Monarch to do it personally. Don't worry, I'm a very open-minded person. Celestial. As the Great Gate Star Monarch spoke, he pulled out Myriad Waters Mountain Sword. Zhou Xiaoduo clenched his fists and put on an authentic posture that only a grandmaster of a generation could put on. His feet were abnormally heavy, and his entire body was like a lofty mountain. He said seriously, perhaps Tai Bai Jinxing does not know, but I am known as the Iron Fist Young Master. Today, I will use this pair of fists to experience the power of an ancient legendary figure. You want to fight me with your bare hands? I really don't know who gave you the courage. The Great Gate Star Sovereign didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After being away from the world for so many years, were the youngsters nowadays all so arrogant? You're only a sky-soar realm cultivator, yet you dare to challenge me with your bare hands? What guts you have? Good, 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 I will experience the Iron Fist Young Master's Iron Fist. The Great Gate Star Sovereign held his sword with one hand and placed the other behind his back. He said casually, "Since you are a junior, I will allow you to make the first move. Even if it is a battle of life and death, I will allow you to make 3 moves first." He showed the demeanor of an expert and made it clear that he would allow him to make 3 moves first. This was probably the demeanor of a true pinnacle expert. At least in the Great Gate Star Sovereign's opinion, although he hadn't recovered to the level of a Zenith Heavenly Immortal at his peak and could only unleash the power of a Tao Integration Stage cultivator. With this kid's shallow strength, even if he stood there and let him hit him, he wouldn't be able to touch him at all. Since that was the case, he naturally had to maintain the demeanor of a senior. What was the point of letting him make 3 moves first? 3 moves first? You want to let me make 3 moves first? Zhou Xiaoduo shook his head. No, how can that be? We are enemies, and this is a fair battle. There is no need to talk about letting me make a move first. However, the Great Gate Star Sovereign had clearly said that he would let him make a move first. With his status, how could he go back on his words? Did he still want to maintain the demeanor of a senior? I said that I would let you make 3 moves first, so I will let you make 3 moves first. The Great Gate Star Sovereign was displeased. Do you think I am someone who would go back on my words? Zhou Xiaoduo said, are you really going to stand there and let me make 3 moves first? That would be too much of an advantage for you. How can there be such a logic in this world? Even if you are a senior expert, you can't look down on me like this, right? The Great Gate Star Sovereign was stunned. Stand there and let him make 3 moves first? Did I say something like that? When did I say that? However, I am the Great Gate Star Sovereign of the ancient heavenly court. Do you know how high my reputation is? Although he was only a Tao Integration Stage cultivator, a pinnacle Tao Integration Stage cultivator was enough to crush all the Astral Souls cultivators in this space without exception. Looking at this kid, Zhou Xiaoduo's expression didn't change, and he tried his best to restrain himself. You are indeed only at the initial sky-soar realm. The Great Gate Star Sovereign was relieved. He smiled elegantly and said, I have not descended to the mortal world for countless years. Juniors like you don't know how powerful I am. Fine, I will let you make 3 moves first. Consider it as fulfilling your reputation as the Iron Fist Young Master. Let me see what you are capable of and whether you live up to your reputation. The meaning behind his words was clear. You are only allowed to use your fists. Otherwise, don't blame me for going back on my words. The Great Gate Star Sovereign was obviously being careful. Although you claim to be best at fists, how powerful can you be with your bare hands? You can't hurt me even if you die of exhaustion. But if he could use weapons? What if this brat had some kind of divine weapon in his hands? This kid is the son of some Sky Patrol minister. With my current weak body, I may not be able to withstand his attacks. So if you use weapons, don't blame me for being ruthless. After hearing this, Zhou Xiaoduo was so regretful that he wanted to bang his head against the wall. This idiot actually agreed. If he had known, he would have just told the truth. He would have said that he was best at using hammers. If he used hammers directly, would he need 3 hammers? 1 hammer would be enough to turn a watermelon into mush. However, he did not know that if he had said that he was good at using hammers from the start, the Great Gate Star Sovereign would not have agreed to let him make 3 moves. Perhaps some people would say that the Great Gate Star Sovereign was stupid, but for a Grand Heavenly Realm expert who had been high up for a long time to meet an ant with a cultivation as shallow as paper like Zhou Xiaoduo, it was normal for him to look down on someone high up. It was just a game of cat and mouse. Great Gate Star Jun Yuan stood tall with his hands behind his back. He stood confidently on the ground and said indifferently, although you will die today, You are still a genius of your generation. After you die, I will think of a way to prevent your soul from disappearing. When you reincarnate again, come to my demon race. Perhaps we will meet again at that time. This was the Great Gate Star Sovereign's true goal. With his current cultivation, he could not forcibly detain Zhuoxiao Duo. However, if Zhuoxiao Duo was willing, there would be no problem. The Great Gate Star Monarch could tell at a glance that this guy's body was much stronger than the brat he possessed. Moreover, the power of Providence was indescribably strong. As long as his true spirit was not destroyed and he was reincarnated, he would still be a shocking genius. This kind of thing could only be encountered by chance. Zhuoxiao Duo did a chest expansion exercise and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Star Sovereign." The Great Gate Star Sovereign said, "You agree. This is a good thing. For us cultivators, the path of the Great Tao is the most important. Everything else is trivial. When death is imminent, there is still a chance. How can I not agree?" Zhuoxiao Duo said with a smile, "Star Sovereign is famous. I will do my best to test Senior's bottom line." The Great Gate Star Sovereign said indifferently, "That's how it should be." Zhuoxiao Duo roared and clenched his fists. His already extraordinary aura increased by 3 points. Amidst the dense fog, the Great Gate Star Sovereign was attached to the myriad water mountain. He stood with his hands behind his back and did not move. His aura was solemn, like a mountain. His clothes fluttered, and his hair danced in the wind. He was truly elegant and was not deliberately pretending. On the other hand, Zhuoxiao Duo was pretending to circulate his qi, as if he was trying his best to mobilize and gather all his cultivation. "I'm coming," Zhuoxiao Duo roared. Before he finished speaking, he had already leaped up. The first to move was a heavenly secret order targeted at the Great Gate Star Sovereign. It silently flew away. The content of the order, "Bloody Calamity, Fallen Soul." The Great Gate Star Sovereign smiled faintly. His indifferent eyes swept across Zhuoxiao Duo's figure with disdain, as if he was looking at an insignificant ant. However, Zhuoxiao Duo charged over like lightning. He was only 10 steps away from the Great Gate Star Sovereign. For a Skysoar realm expert, the distance of 10 steps was almost nothing. However, Zhuoxiao Duo's movements were as fast as lightning, forcefully causing a clear sense of hierarchy to appear in the space of 10 steps. He took a step forward, and the spiritual energy in his body boiled. After taking a third step, the Flaming Sun Sutra was fully activated. The surroundings were like the scorching sun in the sky, and the aura was boiling. The Great Gate Star Sovereign smiled faintly. "I knew that you had a fire element cultivation technique. Were you trying your best to hide it as a trump card? But how could a grain of rice emit brilliance?" He stood firmly and spread out his cultivation in an even manner. He could ensure that when Zhuoxiao Duo punched him, no matter where he punched, his cultivation would be concentrated in that place. He had already made up his mind to use his shocking cultivation, or at least, to shock the heavenly Tao in this place, to directly injure Zhuoxiao Duo. Who said that you couldn't inflict heavy injuries just because you didn't fight back? That's just because your knowledge is shallow. 3 moves? Too many. 1 move was enough. Chapter 1239. Huff. Zhuoxiao Duo's first step was already accompanied by the howling of the wind. After 3 steps, the space was already buzzing. When Zhuoxiao Duo reached the 5th step, a black hole had already appeared behind him. With a crack, the space was torn apart. In such a short distance, he had already broken through the space and burned it. The flames on his body also grew by another notch. The elemental fire art was surging rapidly. In the next moment, the flames that surged around Zhuoxiao Duo's body suddenly turned purple, incinerating everything in its path. Zhu Rong was really angry. It steps. Zhuoxiao Duo punched out. It was mixed with the mournful howl of ghosts. The surrounding heaven and earth seemed to be squeezing together. 2 balls of light, 1 white and 1 black, shot into his fist at the critical moment, and a streak of fiery light shot out from behind his fist. Grand Sun Primordial Fire. On his fist, there was still a glimmer of light. It was the hexagrams of 3 eternal stars stones that had quietly appeared on his fist. Boom! The brazen punch landed squarely on Wan Shuaishan, who was possessed by the Great Gate Star Monarch. Zhou Xiaoduo had used all his strength in this punch. His opponent was a Star Monarch. He might even be a powerful character who could fight head-on with his father, Zhou Changlu. How could Zhou Xiaoduo dare to underestimate his opponent? It was good that his opponent was underestimating him. It gave him a chance to let him have 3 moves. It would be best if he could take the attack without dodging. All the mystic arts in his body were concentrated on his fist. The flaming sun scripture was burning to the limit. The elemental fire art was operating at full force. Zhu Rong was really angry. There was also Bai and Jiao, who had entered his fist. The hexagrams of the eternal stars stones were attached to his fist. There was also Xiao, who was surging with Grand Sun primordial fire, who was assisting him from behind the fist. Zhou Xiaoduo had used the maximum power of his own body and most of his trump cards in this attack. The combined attack was to finish the battle in one stroke. The other party was actually willing to stand still and let him hit him. Zhou Xiaoduo felt that if he didn't take advantage of this, then he would be letting down his ancestors. 3 moves? There were too many. 1 move was enough. 1 move was enough. Seeing Zhou Xiaoduo come smashing at him with earth-shattering power, Great Gate Star Monarch maintained a relaxed posture. He calmly observed the changes and did not think anything was wrong. However, when Zhou Xiaoduo took the 8th step and punched out crazily, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. An extreme sense of danger suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. It was as if there was something on his opponent's fist that made him feel feared. However, he seemed to have noticed it a little too late. The moment that fist smashed into his chest like a heavenly hammer, that the Great Gate Star Monarch finally remembered what it was. That was Zhu Rong's true fire. Zhu Wu's true fire. That year, Zhu Rong's true fire had sent him flying 300 miles with a single punch and crippled him. It was actually Zhu Rong's true fire. He did not dodge. Instead, he faced Zhu Rong's true fire head-on. However, he remembered it too late. The meaning of it being late was, it was over. Boom. Zhou Xiaoduo's fist, which contained many trump cards, was unprecedentedly intimate with the Great Gate Star Monarch's chest. It was a crazy collision. Zhu Rong's true fire merged into the primordial fire and the flaming sun primordial fire. The 3 flames merged into one and forcefully merged into the Great Gate Star Monarch's chest. Amidst the miserable screams that were filled with endless regret. Judging from the combat strength that the other party had displayed, the other party was even stronger than his current cultivation. The other party had actually shamelessly made him stand straight and take a beating. He had actually given him 3 moves. How shameless! I've been tricked. The Great Gate Star Monarch's roar was heart-wrenching. However, the counterforce caused by the Great Gate Star Monarch still sent the unsuspecting Zhou Xiaoduo flying 17 meters away. However, this result was within Zhou Xiaoduo's expectations. He had already turned around in midair and had already taken out 2 huge cat hammers. The moment the 2 hammers appeared, the space shook. Buzz. One hammered the sky, the other hammered the earth. The first move brought along yin-yang, sun, moon, mountain, river, heaven and earth. In a turn, it was as if he had teleported to the front of the Great Gate Star Monarch, who was still retreating. Bang! Don't dodge. With a twist of his waist, a huge hammer that carried the power of the heaven and earth, sun, moon, mountain, river, yin-yang, and star monarch smashed down. He didn't forget to shout, "This is the second move you let me use. Don't go back on your word." Under his first punch, the Great Gate Star Monarch had already suffered a great loss. His body was basically crippled, and there was a big hole in his chest, revealing that his internal organs had all been turned into mush, and they were still being burned by the 4-colored flames. A 3-legged golden crow flew back and forth in his chest, and 2 balls of light, one white and one black, were wantonly eating away at him. The 3 starry sky indestructible stones flowed rapidly and forcefully blocked the soul power, preventing the Great Gate Star Monarch's soul power from leaving his body. The Great Gate Star Monarch had never imagined that this kid would be so sneaky. His so-called first punch was at least equivalent to 5 moves from other people. 5 ultimate moves, the ultimate killing moves. What he didn't expect even more was how this kid was so strong. In the memories of his host body, shouldn't the person in front of him be a deformed seed who had been piled up by countless heaven and earth treasures because of his excellent background? How could he be so strong? A second-generation official. A trash who used his background to rob other ordinary students of their resources? What the fuck? How could this be? What's more, this kid was facing the opponent he feared the most, the Zhu Rong True Fire that could perfectly suppress him. It wasn't just the Zhu Rong True Fire. There were 3 other kinds of equally violent and blazing flames that targeted him both inside and outside of his home. The soul that belonged to Wan Shueishan. The soul of the protagonist of Destiny that had just been cheated had already dissipated at the first moment. Not even a tiny fragment was left behind. Clang, clang, clang. The Great Gate Star Monarch's entire body turned into a burning torch that soared into the sky. He desperately waved his long sword and engaged in a fierce confrontation with Zhuo's 99 cat hammer. Despicable! 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 The Great Gate Star Monarch was really mad at this time. On one hand, he cursed Zhuo for being despicable, on the other hand, he cursed Wan Shueishan for being despicable. These little guys were all classmates, but how could this Wan Shueishan have such a misconception? Just this first punch was enough to announce his death. He had suffered a crushing defeat, with no room for maneuver. Who would have thought that this kid actually had the tyrannical strength to fight him head-on? Yet, such a strong person still wanted to play small and play tricks to make him stand still and let him make 3 moves. It would have been fine if that was all, but he even thought of a way to play dirty. Originally, even if he failed to descend, at least 30% of his soul power could return. However, this kid actually used the Starry Sky Eternal Stone to lock onto his soul. Wasn't this Starry Sky Eternal Stone only owned by the imperial family of the Heavenly Court? How could it fall into the hands of a mere human? If he hadn't already confirmed that this was a trap set up by his family, and that it was a trap that was purely beneficial to his family, the Great Gate Star Monarch would have suspected that this was a trap set up by the human race to lure him and the others into it. Then, when he was not in his best state, he would be ambushed. The current situation clearly showed that he was the one being ambushed. The next moment, the Great Gate Star Monarch lowered his head and realized to his horror that it was the 3-legged golden crow that was rushing around in his body. Ah! The Great Gate Star Monarch's eyes widened as he screamed in disbelief. Clang, clang. After 2 hammers, the long sword in the Great Gate Star Monarch's hand broke into pieces. At this moment, the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer had been pushed to the peak by Zhuo. He didn't hold back at all and smashed down like a storm that it smashed into the burning flames that soared into the sky. This was the Great Gate Star Monarch. Who knew how many tricks he had? He had to take his life while he was sick and end this battle in the shortest time possible. Zhuo didn't dare to be careless at all. He smashed out 1,300 hammers in one go. He was completely smelting the Great Gate Star Monarch like steel that the last few dozen hammers simply smashed into the air. The body of the Great Gate Star Monarch, which was attached to the Myriad Water Mountain, had long been smashed into the air. Not even powder was left. Chapter 1240. The Great Gate Star Sovereign's body was smashed into pieces, and even the air was still being burned by Zhu Rong's True Fire and the other 4 flames. At the last moment the last hammer fell, and a ball of brilliant starlight scattered in all directions like an explosion. The whole space was full of specks of starlight, scattered all over the sky, like a large group of fireflies dancing in the night sky. In a moment, an illusory figure gradually took shape in the starlight. With a complicated expression, he glanced at Zhuo and then looked at the 3-legged golden crow Xiao, who was flying happily in the air. There was an indescribable bitterness on his face. He seemed to want to say something, but he didn't say it. The starlight had already dissipated, and the figure had completely disappeared, as if there was no trace. The starlight had completely dissipated. The Great Gate Star Sovereign had fallen. Above the clouds, on the other side of the distant starry sky, the great gate star, which was flickering crazily, suddenly dimmed after releasing extreme brilliance. More than 90% of its luster disappeared, and then it was completely hidden in the night sky, as if it didn't exist. On the continent of the demon clan floating in the distant starry sky. In the hall of the Great Gate Star Sovereign. The Great Gate Star Sovereign, who was meditating cross-legged, suddenly screamed and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His aura shriveled like a mummy whose water had been sucked out, that his cultivation base continued to slide down. In the slums of Shangjing City. In a hidden courtyard, that the head of the Heavenly Jade sect suddenly screamed and spat out blood continuously. His aura also fell rapidly. His whole body trembled, and his eyes widened, that he suddenly screamed, and his eyes were full of disbelief. How could it be? The Great Gate Star Sovereign's avatar has fallen. Before his voice died away, his head tilted, and he fainted weakly. Although he had fainted, his body was still trembling, and he kept spitting out blood. Blood was also flowing out of his 7 orifices, which was extremely terrifying. On the other hand, Granny Greedy Wolf and the others all had tragic expressions on their faces. However, no one moved from the beginning to the end. The star formation was still going on. They couldn't move yet. However, despair and disbelief had already risen in their eyes. The Great Gate Star Sovereign could also fall? Against these ant-like characters, the Star Lord had actually fallen? How was this possible? That Zhu Rong's true fire was still burning fiercely. It converted the remaining power of the Great Gate Star Sovereign into the power of the true fire. Then, it sent the primordial fire to the Flaming Sun Sutra. The Flaming Sun Sutra circulated 9 times in the sky, feeding the primordial fire back to the primordial fire, and the primordial fire fed the Zhu Rong's true fire back. The 3 flames became more and more harmonious, gradually merging into one. When all the power was converted into the Zhu Rong primordial fire, it would be several times more powerful. On the other hand, Bai and Jiu devoured the soul fragments of the Great Gate Star Lord and the 10,000 Rivers Mountain without wasting a single bit. With this benefit, the bodies of the 2 little beasts became twice as solid as before, and the body of the gourd no longer looked as delicate as before. Then, 2 drops of providence points fell from the sky and landed between Zhuxiaoduo's eyebrows. His entire body instantly felt refreshed, and his essence qi also surged out of nowhere, increasing by quite a bit. And this was the providence points brought about by the fulfillment of the 10,000 Rivers Mountain's heavenly secret order. Just as Zhuxiaoduo was feeling extremely good and felt that this was the happiest thing in life, suddenly, a large number of providence points fell down. This is 700 drops. Zhuxiaoduo exclaimed in disbelief, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. These were the providence points given back after the Great Gate Star Lord's heavenly secret order came true, but Zhuxiaoduo had never thought that there would be so many providence points given back. But thinking about it, it seemed to make sense. After all, this was the Heavenly Jade Planet, the Great Gate Star Lord, a legend of a generation, a super expert. He had directly smashed his soul into smithereens. 700 luck points was still acceptable. The power of such a huge amount of providence points strongly nourished Zhuxiaoduo's soul, divine sense, divine thought, cultivation, dantian, body, meridians, bloodline. His meridians, which were already far more flexible than ordinary cultivators, suddenly received a huge boost. The width of his meridians also reached a new peak. The heavenly spirit gushing spring circulation was like a fast lane, and it was unimaginably wide. As the saying went, a sore on the top of the head and pus on the soles of the feet. Although Zhuxiaoduo did not have any sore or pus, his entire body was now opened. Of course, if one wanted to talk about how bad it was barely enough to say that. Zhuxiaoduo's cultivation had also soared to the peak of the Skysoar realm, and he suppressed it 9 times. Originally, during this period of time, Zhuxiaoduo's cultivation had already reached the peak of the Skysoar realm, and he had begun to suppress his true yuan. However, the amount of spiritual energy required for a Skysoar realm cultivator to advance further was too huge. Duo and the others had cultivated for more than 10 days in the Tower of Annihilation for more than 5 years, and each of them had reached the stage of suppressing their true yuan. However, they did not break through the perfect state of suppressing their true yuan like Duo had expected. This result and the current situation made everyone unhappy. One could imagine that if Zhuanglu and the others were to find out about their dissatisfaction, they would definitely give those fellows a good beating. After all, even the most talented of geniuses would need at least a few decades to advance from the initial stage to the peak stage of the Skysoar realm. Depending on the aptitude, it was normal for many people to need hundreds or even thousands of years of accumulation. You have only cultivated for a few years in the Tower of Annihilation, and it has only been a few days in the outside world, and you still think it's slow? Where is your face? In just a few days, you have advanced from the initial stage to the peak of the Skysoar realm, and even started to suppress your true yuan. Moreover, each of you has suppressed your true yuan several times. What more do you want? What more do you want? Duo was so happy that he could not even open his eyes. The benefits were too great. Wasn't this too great? No, how could one time be enough? I must continue to work hard and conquer one more city, and then a few more cities. As a man, he must endure. He must not give up. He must continue to work hard. Duo was so excited that he could not control himself. If his guess was right this time, there would be 15 celestial monarchs, right? If he could kill all these celestial monarchs one by one, wouldn't it mean that he would be rich in an instant? 15 celestial monarchs, let me calculate. 7 equals 7, 7 equals 49, 15 multiplied by 7. More than 10,000. Duo let out a strange cry. Oh my God! Hurry up, hurry up! The battle between Duo and the Great Gate Celestial Monarch was complicated, but in fact, it had only lasted for a short while. From the myriad waters mountain suppressing the golden dragon of Providence, to the confrontation between the two sides, to Duo's ferocious punch, to the chain of 2 hammers that completely destroyed the Great Gate Celestial Monarch, it had only taken a few dozen breaths of time at most. The golden dragon of luck that emerged from the ground was no longer suppressed by the starlight. It rose up again and charged towards Duo. It was as if it was trying to get close to Duo. How could Xiaolong allow the golden dragon of Providence to act rashly? Did this coquettish bitch still want to fight for his favor? Therefore, he appeared from the void-extinguishing pagoda, caught the golden dragon of Providence, opened his mouth, and swallowed it whole. I'll eat you. It was also at this moment that Duo inexplicably felt that he seemed to have gained something. A foundation, a foundation. Good stuff. Duo laughed and flicked 10 providence points to Xiaolong. Eat, I have a lot of DD now. Duo, who had just made a windfall, naturally wouldn't be stingy with his rewards for Xiaolong. Moreover, this time, he was snatching providence, so he still had to rely on Xiaolong. Of course, he had to feed his little brother first. Only when he was full would he have the strength and the will to work more intensely. Good fortune had fallen from the sky. Xiaolong was instantly so excited that he couldn't tell north from south. 10 drops. It was actually 10 drops. 10 drops in a single breath. Was he dreaming? Oh, that boss is too awesome. Boss, I love you. Xiaolong cheered. What kind of good day is it today? Could it be my lucky day? Not only did I just swallow a complete dragon of Providence, but I also received so many drops from boss as a reward. Seeing that the rewards were in his hands, Duo didn't stay any longer. He had already rushed out. He was going to find his brother. This Great Gate Star Monarch was extremely powerful. If Duo hadn't tricked him, Duo estimated that even if he could win in a head-on battle, he would have to exchange at least a few hundred or even a few thousand moves. It would be difficult to kill an opponent without an extreme battle. One had to know that when he punched him, he was still sent flying by his opponent's protective vital energy. This kind of strength could be said to be terrifying. Now that the Great Gate Star Monarch had suddenly arrived, the other Stargate Star Monarchs would most likely come as well. As for the people on his side, other than Yen Mao, The others, including Li Chenglong, might not be a match for this great Gate Star monarch. If the difference in strength between the many Stargate Star monarchs was similar, then the students of the astral souls who had entered the situation of a group of dragons fighting for a heritage would be in great danger. They would easily suffer heavy casualties. He had to speed up and find their traces as soon as possible. He had to defeat them one by one. Yes, he had to defeat them one by one. Zhuo Duo estimated that if 2 Stargate Star monarchs gathered, he would have to turn around and run. He would no longer have the ability to fight. If 3 Stargate Star monarchs gathered, it would be very difficult for him to even run. Zhuo body flashed as he rushed to help other places. In a land of ice and snow, Zhuo Xiaoyan's Spirit Snatcher sword turned into a sword shadow that covered the sky. Ice Spirit, who was about to reach her peak, controlled the sword and fought with Wang Ziyun in the air. Although Wang Ziyun, who was born of the Wang family's direct bloodline, did not receive the power of the Stargate Star Monarch, he had taken a forbidden pill. A forbidden pill called the Heaven-Defying Pill. It was a super pill that he had obtained from his partner. And the name of this pill was Heaven-Defying Luck. This was the key to all the Wang family schemes. Chapter 1241. The reason why this forbidden pill was known as heaven-defying was because its medicinal strength was too great. Even a Skysoar realm expert wouldn't be able to withstand it and would immediately explode to death. However, if one was placed in a special environment, such as a group of dragons fighting for a vein, the luck would protect one's body. After eating it, not only would one's body not explode, one's strength would break through countless bottlenecks and reach the upper limit allowed by this space. Furthermore, after consuming the heaven-defying pill, as long as one obtained the approval of the Dragon of Fate after killing the opponent, the energy of the Dragon of Fate would naturally help the host suppress the true yuan within the body. After that, by borrowing the power of the Wang clan's blood sacrifice, the Dragon of Fate would fully transform into the clan's fate. As for Wang Ziyun, after experiencing this and getting married, his first child would receive twice the amount of the Dragon of Fate. Furthermore, it wouldn't be as simple as just doubling it. Coupled with the Wang clan's ancestral vein's power of fate, this child would have the innate talent and foundation to become a first-rate genius from the moment he was born. At the very least, this child's fate wouldn't be inferior to Li Chenglong's current. It could be said that he was blessed by the heavens, and it could also be said that this was an extremely terrifying operation of fate. One must know that Li Chenglong's current fate had been brought by Zhuo Duo, allowing him to be on par with the upper echelons of the continent, or even surpass them. Of course, even if all of this could be achieved smoothly, there would still be a price to pay. When the child was born, the Dragon of Fate would double in power, and Wang Ziyun would lose the protection of his fate. His body wouldn't be able to withstand the restless true yuan, and he would immediately explode to death. However, the current Wang Ziyun naturally didn't know about this drawback. At that time, he would inevitably become a sacrifice for his clan. On the contrary, he only knew that he had become stronger and would continue to become stronger until the end of time, that his clan was the clan's greatest hope. As long as he could obtain the approval of the dragons fighting over the veins, he would become the child of destiny in the future. After snatching this vein, he would still have to snatch the second one, the third one, and kill Zhuo Duo. And take his fate for himself. It had to be said that the Wang clan's wishful thinking was extremely good. Zhuo Duo was not so strong. He would definitely die if he encountered the Wang family in this group of dragons fighting for the heritage. With Zhuo Duo's luck and the dragon vein luck from the dragons fighting for the dragon vein, it was hard to predict what kind of terrifying genius would emerge from the Wang clan. At the very least, as long as the Wang family's plan succeeded, the Wang family would have at least one of the most talented children. This child's luck would be so strong that it would be even stronger than the current Zhuo Duo. Just this point alone, for this goal, the Wang clan was willing to give up everything, regardless of the price. This was something that could make them a great clan that surpassed both ancient and modern times. Because of this, the Wang clan had gone completely crazy. Moreover, it had to be said that such a goal was really worth fighting for. It didn't matter even if the upper echelons and participants all died. As long as a genius bloodline was preserved, the future would naturally be many times more glorious than now. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Zhou Xiaoduo and Zhou Xiaoyan had already crushed the Wang clan's disciples in terms of strength. Zhou Xiaoyan didn't even need to do anything. Just her ice spirit sword was enough to completely suppress Wang Ziyun, whose strength had greatly increased. After all, no matter how much his strength increased, Wang Ziyun's strength was still only at the Dao integration pinnacle stage. This was because the pinnacle of the Dao integration pinnacle stage was the limit of the heavenly Dao. It was impossible to surpass this limit. Wang Ziyun was different from the other geniuses possessed by the celestial monarchs. He didn't have much combat experience. Nor did he have countless years of accumulation. Zhou Xiaoyan, on the other hand, was at the pinnacle of the Skysoar realm. Furthermore, she had suppressed this level nearly 20 times. Even if she faced a celestial monarch, she could still defeat him. How could a mere Wang Ziyun compare to him? How could they even be mentioned in the same breath? As Zhou Xiaoyan continued to circulate her energy, an icy white mist suddenly appeared in her hand. The mist then soared into the air and transformed into a snow-white ice phoenix. With a phoenix cry, the ice phoenix soared into the sky. This was the inheritance that Zhou Xiaoyan had obtained from the lightning tribulation. Snow Phoenix, Divine Phoenix. Boom! Wang Ziyun's entire body was frozen by the ice phoenix. Immediately after, his chest was pierced by the ice phoenix. His entire body turned into ice shards that scattered between heaven and earth. The ice phoenix opened its mouth and swallowed the power that didn't belong to Wang Ziyun. Then, with a phoenix cry, it flew back into Zhou Xiaoyan's body and disappeared. Following that, a Providence dragon suddenly soared into the sky. Zhou Xiaoyan waved her hand, and the Providence dragon disappeared into the palm of her hand. The ice spirit sword flew back with the ice spirit sword. Zhou Xiaoyan's expression was cold. From the beginning of the battle until now, her expression hadn't changed at all. She flew up directly. She was as cold as the moon and as pure as ice and snow. Then she floated away. The ice spirit sword turned into a ball of ice and snow divine light and followed Zhou Xiaoyan. Everywhere it passed, there was a world of ice and snow, and it was extremely cold. On the other side, Li Chenglong had already defeated Kong Yunshang and obtained the Providence Dragon. Without any hesitation, he turned around and rushed to another area. Zhen Piapiao had also defeated a student who was only at the peak of the God-reigning stage. She didn't kill her opponent either. Instead, she simply took the Providence Dragon and left. Zhou Yunqing's sword aura soared into the sky. Once his sword was drawn, he would never turn back. He sent his opponent flying with a single blow. Then he took the Providence Dragon and shot off like lightning. When they entered, they had all received Li Chenglong's telepathic message. There had been an unforeseen event in the dragons fighting for the mountain range. If they encountered an opponent who could be defeated quickly, they had to defeat him as quickly as possible. Then they had to help the others immediately. They had to stick together as much as possible. Otherwise, they would be in great danger. Compared to the others, Yu Moyan was more unlucky. He encountered a celestial monarch nearby. He wasn't like Zhou Xiaoduo, who was good at playing tricks. When he saw that something was wrong, he would detonate his strongest strength and fight head-on. Naturally, he attracted a lot of attention from his opponent. He didn't underestimate him at all and treated him very seriously. Naturally, he fell into a bitter battle. Zhou Xiaoduo, who had quickly defeated his opponent, the Great Gate Celestial Monarch, went straight in. He passed through a thick fog and entered another area. At a glance, he saw Diyan, trying her best to wield her sword to fight her opponent. She was engaged in a fierce battle with her opponent. It was obvious that Du Guyen was at an absolute disadvantage. Her face was pale, and her clothes were stained with blood. She staggered back and could only put up a desperate struggle to survive. After such a long period of seclusion in the Void Extermination Tower, Du Guyen had also reached the peak of the Skysoar realm. However, her foundation was much weaker than the others. Although the difference in cultivation was similar, her true strength was the weakest of the others. Therefore, compared to her current opponent, She was much weaker. If Zhuo Duo didn't come to her rescue in time, Duguyen would die in a few minutes at most. Zhuo Duo didn't say anything when he saw this. He first threw a divine secret order over, and then his power flew into the sky and smashed down with his 99 cat hammer. With a clang, the sword in the hand of the young man was smashed and he staggered back. He looked up at Zhuo Duo and shouted, "I'm the celestial monarch of the Big Dipper, Fu Shan Lu Xinjian. For you." Zhuo Duo smashed his hammer and said loudly, "I'm the third Big Dipper, celestial monarch of the Big Dipper. I've heard a lot about you. I'm the divine dragon sword, Long Yusheng. Please enlighten me." The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper was furious. "Aren't you Zhuo Duo? What divine dragon sword? What Long Yusheng? Why do you still ask if you know? You're so long-winded." Zhuo Duo didn't stop at all. He operated the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer with all his strength. His whole body turned into a black and white whirlwind, and his figure disappeared. Duguyen staggered back a few steps and tried to stabilize her body. Seeing the arrival of strong reinforcements, she didn't dare to be negligent. She hurriedly took medicine and healed her injuries. She wanted to recover her battle strength as soon as possible. She held her sword and watched the battle, ready to help at any time. The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper was furious. "I don't know what your name or title is. I only found out after talking with the kid who possessed my body. But what the other party said was right. You know that I'm Zhuo Duo, but you still want to ask for my name. You're really looking for a conversation. But I can't explain this. Actually, I don't know." That he had to hold his breath and fight Zhuo Duo. But the celestial monarch of the Big Dipper was more and more surprised as he fought. With his cultivation, battle strength, and so many years of rich combat experience, plus his superior cultivation, he was actually suppressed by Zhuo Duo. He was powerless to turn the tables. This was simply preposterous. The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper couldn't bear the pressure. He roared, and suddenly starlight appeared in his palm. It immediately turned into a huge starlight sword, facing Zhuo Duo's 99 cat hammer head-on. Boom, 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 boom. Such a head-on collision without any pretense had the power to shake the heavens and the earth. Zhuo Duo was in high spirits as he went all out for the second time. That flaming sun sutra was suddenly activated to its peak. A huge sun suddenly appeared in the sky, burning fiercely and spreading without end. The 99 kitty hammers smashed down like raindrops. As they fought, they burned. When the battle reached its end, starlight suddenly flashed. 3 starry sky indestructible stone hexagrams shot out. Dang, dang, dang. The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper quickly knocked away the hexagrams. He said angrily, "You still have hidden weapons. Despicable." However, before he could finish speaking, he suddenly let out a loud cry. A hexagram silently flew up from the ground and pierced through his shoes, embedding itself into the flesh of the soles of his feet. Following that, it continued to advance upwards, continuing to wreak havoc. Even with the celestial monarch of the Big Dipper's cultivation, he couldn't force it out. He couldn't even stop that strange hidden weapon from continuously corroding his flesh. That this feeling was actually very familiar. The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper couldn't help but shout, "Starry sky indestructible stone?" Before he finished speaking, Zhuo Duo's 2 sledgehammers suddenly collided in front of him. With a muffled bang, countless needles suddenly shot out of the hammers, exploding like bombs. Chapter 1242. The Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign screamed. He was already at a disadvantage, and he was ambushed by the starry sky indestructible stone. He could no longer dodge the rain of hidden weapons. The first to bear the brunt of the attack was the pair of eyes that were pierced by more than 10 needles. The Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign screamed miserably and waved his sword with all his might, but he could no longer change the reality that he could no longer see. Zhuo Duo and Zhu Rong's true fire suddenly flourished. They surged powerfully and pounced on the Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign's body. The 99 cat hammer executed the 1000's soul extermination. With lightning speed, They crazily smashed down more than 900 times. After countless muffled collisions, the physical body that the heavenly secret star sovereign possessed turned into ashes and no longer existed in this world. As a starlight projection appeared on the field, Zhuo Duo continued to attack crazily with his sledgehammer, not giving the other party any chance to turn the tables. Finally, with a sigh, the starlight dissipated. The heavenly secret star sovereign followed in the footsteps of the great gate star sovereign. Zhu Rong's true fire began to devour and burn. Bai and Jiao also began to devour the heavenly secret star sovereign's soul power with increasing familiarity. First, 2 providence points fell. Then, another 700 drops of providence points entered his account. Zhuo Duo was so comfortable that his entire body trembled, and he cried out. The providence dragon on the ground shook its head and wagged its tail as it rushed towards Zhuo Duo. Zhuo Duo waved his hand and slapped the dragon onto Dugu Yenner's body. Zhuo Duo would naturally snatch the providence of others. He would not miss it. However, the providence of his own team and his brother's wife. How could he have the nerve to snatch it as the providence dragon entered her body? Dugu Yenner's complexion recovered a lot. Zhuo Duo rushed over with an ugly expression. Why didn't you use the heaven-mending stone to recover? Dugu Yenner lowered her head in shame. Can't bear to. Zhuo Duo was speechless. How is it? It's fine. All right, let's split up immediately. You go here and I'll go here. If you encounter an enemy like this person alone, don't act rashly. We'll attack together. Zhuo Duo made the arrangements. I understand. The 2 of them split up and disappeared into the thick fog. If they worked together, they could only help 1 person. If they split up, they could help 2 people. Both of them were very clear on this point. Although Dugu Yenner's strength alone was not enough to fight against a star monarch, if she rushed to help another person who had encountered a star monarch, the 2 of them could still fight against one. Wanli Xiuqiu felt that her luck was very good. Her opponent was Jun Anmin, a member of the imperial family. The disparity in strength between the 2 sides was obvious. Wanli Xiu was confident in her victory, but reality was unpredictable. A streak of starlight flashed and this royal disciple was shockingly possessed by the legendary Star Lord Vanquisher. Seeing the sudden change in situation, Wanli Xiu became even more vigilant. Especially after knowing the opponent's name, she simply adopted the tactic of fighting steadily and surely. Occasionally, he would directly use the flying force to suppress the opponent, mixed with small and nimble movements to dodge and evade. He rarely met force with force. This stalemate lasted for more than 10 minutes. Although she inevitably fell into a disadvantage, the overall situation was still in a state of ease. And this result almost angered Star Lord Vanquisher to death. He clearly had an earth-shattering power and an aura that surpassed the might of heaven and earth, but he couldn't use it at all here. He had been delayed for so long by this little girl in front of him, but he was completely unable to defeat the enemy. The reason why it was difficult for Star Lord Vanquisher to fully display his combat strength was because the person he had possessed was the human emperor's bloodline of the astral souls. It was probably because the Demon Clan's continent had been separated from the astral souls continent for too long. At that time, the human race was still weak. Now that he had personally come into contact with the human emperor's bloodline, he realized that the human emperor's bloodline had a natural suppressive effect on a demon star like him. This was simply a fucking coincidence. And the flying ant opposite him refused to fight him head-on even if he was beaten to death, which made him even more depressed. The 2 of them chased each other around in this space as if they were flying. The azure dragon of Providence that had rushed out from the ground was coiling on the ground like a huge snake. That after this azure dragon came out, it wanted to drill into Wanli Xiu's body. After all, Wanli Xiu's Providence was also quite huge, and the Providence dragon instinctively attached to the person with the stronger Providence, but it was suppressed by Star Lord Vanquisher's great strength. But Star Lord Vanquisher couldn't take it. After killing Wanli Xiu, whose Providence was far stronger than Jun Anmin's, he couldn't take the Providence dragon. This was the rule of the heavenly Tao. Since the start of the battle, the 2 of them had gone around in circles thousands of times. Star Lord Vanquisher was so angry that he cursed. Damn it, little girl, have some shame. Have some integrity, will you? Juan Licio ran even faster. The enemy is strong, so I retreat. How can I be shameless? You can't catch up with me, so you're talking nonsense over there. Are you embarrassed? Who's the shameless one here? Star-Lord Vanquisher became more and more furious. Juan Licio knew clearly that as long as she held on and maintained the stalemate, Zwa and the others would naturally come to help after they finished off their opponents. So she just had to hold on as long as possible. She couldn't advance rashly. If by the time Zwa and the others arrived, she had already become a corpse. That wouldn't do. One of them chased while the other ran. If they really couldn't fight, they would fight a few times and then continue to run. Juan Licio's actual combat strength was inferior, but Star-Lord Vanquisher, who was affected by the human emperor's bloodline, couldn't easily take down Juan Licio. They could only maintain this stalemate. At this moment the thick fog flipped. A black shadow appeared in the field. Who else could it be but Zhuo Duo? Xiao, get out of the way. Watch me hammer him to death. Zhuo Duo shouted arrogantly. A heavenly secret order flew over and disappeared. Boss, be careful. He's Star-Lord Vanquisher, the 7th heavenly gate of the Big Dipper. Juan Licio hurriedly jumped out of the circle and warned. Star-Lord Vanquisher, the 7th heavenly gate of the Big Dipper. His ancient name is Alcade. Zhuo Duo laughed and rushed forward. I've heard a lot about you. Take my hammer. As soon as he let go, the black hexagrams of the starry sky eternal stone rushed over. Star-Lord Vanquisher's long spear was like a dragon. Without saying a word, he scattered the starry sky eternal stone and fought with Zhuo Duo crazily. Star-Lord Vanquisher was originally a warrior. Among the stars, he was the most courageous and unstoppable warrior. He was showing off his invincible might when facing the enemy head-on. Zhuo Duo used the 9-9 cat hammer and clashed with him without backing down. Suddenly, the ground shook and the mountains shook. Star-Lord Vanquisher was troubled by the hexagrams of the starry sky eternal stone that had been knocked away. After being knocked away, they didn't fall to the ground. Instead, they spun and changed directions to attack again. The young man's concealed weapon technique had already reached an unimaginable level of subtlety. However, Star-Lord Vanquisher was the most experienced. His long spear danced in a circle. In his hands, the long spear actually showed the characteristics of all kinds of weapons. For example, a knife, a sword, an axe, a staff, a halberd, a stab. It even had the effect of a long whip. The staff was afraid of the head, and the spear was afraid of the circle. This long spear in Star-Lord Vanquisher's hands was like a dragon overturning rivers and seas. The combination of light and heavy forces was superb. For a moment he fought with Zhuo Duo. Juan Licio, who was watching the battle from the side, felt that her ears were about to be deafened. The two of them didn't fight for a long time, but they were fighting head-on from the start. Zhuo Duo didn't retreat half a step, and Star-Lord Vanquisher also didn't give an inch. In that case, wouldn't they end up in a fight? Wouldn't it be tit for tat? The booming sounds didn't stop from the beginning. Gradually, they connected and continued all the way. Star-Lord Vanquisher laughed as he fought. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Compared to the cat-and-mouse game just now, they didn't have many head-on confrontations. The difference now was like heaven and earth. On the opposite side, Zhuo Duo's face was also filled with a rare expression of contentment. It was really hard to find such an opponent who could fight head-on. It was too rare. This kind of extreme collision that didn't give in, didn't show any tricks, and was full of passion made Zhuo Duo feel intoxicated. It turned out that it was so satisfying to fight with an opponent who was on par with him. Boom! After another collision that shook the heavens and the earth. A change finally appeared in this rare great battle. The long spear in Star-Lord Vanquisher's hand couldn't bear the heavy burden and broke. The moment the long spear broke, the upper half immediately turned into fragments and flew out. Up until now, although Star-Lord Vanquisher had been using his powerful cultivation, which was above Zhuo Duo's, to protect his long spear, and the long spear in his hand was also extraordinary, it still had its limits. Facing the opponent's increasingly powerful and invincible strength, he finally reached this point. And this also showed that his current true strength was not a match for this little guy in front of him. But so what? Star-Lord Vanquisher was arrogant. Without any hesitation, he directly used his fists to meet Zhuoxiaoduo's big hammers. The sound of explosions rang out once more, but it was no longer continuous. Star-Lord Vanquisher, who didn't have a weapon in his hand and only relied on his iron fists, faced the heavy pressure of the two hammers. It was difficult for him to deal with it, and he staggered and flew out. However, he immediately flew back and continued to fight head-on with his opponent. "Kid, remember me?" Star-Lord Vanquisher laughed wildly. "I am the Big Dipper Alcade. I am the Sky Gate Vanquisher." He laughed wildly. "I really wanted to wait a few years for you to fight with me. Unfortunately, I waited for you, but you can't wait for me." Star-Lord Vanquisher's heart was full of regret. If his soul could return to his body and his strength wouldn't be damaged, how good would that be? According to this kid's progress, in another 3 to 5 years, he would be able to have a really satisfying battle. Unfortunately, he couldn't go back. This wish was going to come to nothing in the end. Boom, boom. Amidst the sounds of collisions, the bones in Star Monarch Vanquisher's arms began to break one after another, but he laughed madly like thunder. He did not give in and continued to throw punches to counterattack until the mountain-like hammer smashed heavily into his head. Chapter 1243. Kunpeng, you have an opponent now. Star-Lord Vanquisher laughed. His entire body was turned into powder under Zhuoxiaoduo's continuous attacks that were like a violent storm. Little White and Little Geo, who were eager to hunt, immediately rushed out again. They repeated the operation more and more, and were extremely familiar with it. The Zhurong True Fire also burned wantonly to absorb. Feeling the huge amount of fate points falling from the sky for the third time, Zhuoxiaoduo felt comfortable all over. However, he could not help but sigh in his heart. In the end, he even put away the Starry Sky Indestructible Stone Six-Pointed Star. This battle was so satisfying that Zhuoxiaoduo did not want to use hidden weapons to deal with such an opponent. He did not even want to end this battle so early. However, as Vanquisher Star's long spear was broken, Zhuoxiaoduo had to kill him and end this battle as soon as possible. It was not about the dignity of a martial artist, but the current situation. The battle was extremely dangerous. He was not the only one who was in danger. Many of his companions might be in danger. He gave up the Starry Sky Indestructible Stone Six-Pointed Star, which was the biggest concession he could make. He could not let it go any further. If he did, it would be cruel to his own people. And in this battle, Zhuoxiaoduo felt that he had benefited a lot. He felt that his use of the sledgehammer had reached a new level. In terms of using the technique of lifting something heavy as if it were light and lifting something light as if it were heavy, Vanquisher Star could use it to the acme of perfection. This was something that Zhuoxiaoduo could not compare to. He only relied on a long spear that was not suitable for him to face the 9-9 cat hammer head-on. He was actually on par with him. Zhuoxiaoduo pondered for a long time as he recalled Vanquisher Star's various techniques of using force. Wanli Xiu had quickly put away the Dragon of Fate. "Zhuo, shall we split up?" The two of them quickly separated and went to help each other. In the thick fog, Xiang Bing gritted her teeth and fought side by side with Zhou Yunqing against the fifth star of the Southern Dipper, Star-Lord Du Jie. Xiang Bing was currently at the pinnacle of the Skysoar realm. As for Zhou Yunqing, after his fortuitous encounter in the Sword Catacomb, he was also at the Skysoar realm. However, he was only at the mid-level of the Skysoar realm. If the two of them joined forces, they would still be at a disadvantage in terms of overall strength. However, there was not much of a difference in overall strength. At the very least, it was impossible for the Star-Lord to take down the two of them in a short period of time. In fact, this was because the two of them did not know each other and did not have much tacit understanding to work together against the enemy. Otherwise, they might have had a chance to kill Star-Lord Traitor. Right when both sides were keeping each other in check and were in a stalemate, an expanse of icy coldness suddenly descended. A sword seemed as if it was attacking by itself, and it carried extreme coldness that could compare to a world of ice and snow as it completely enveloped Calamity traversing Star Monarch within it. Following which, a snow-white, majestic and noble phoenix rushed out with a phoenix cry and crashed into the Calamity traversing Star-Lord's face. Calamity traversing Star-Lord turned pale with fright and cried out involuntarily, "Ancient Phoenix Clan? How can this be?" Zhuxiaonian arrived like a fairy from the Moon Palace and suppressed Calamity traversing Star-Lord as soon as she made her move. When Xiang Bing and Zhou Yunqing saw Zhuxiaonian arrive, they were overjoyed and immediately turned from defense to offense, launching a large-scale counterattack. How could Calamity traversing Star-Lord be a match for the three of them? Just Zhuxiaonian alone was already difficult for him to deal with. Now that he had to face the combined attacks of the three of them, how could he deal with them? He could not help but sigh. Hundreds of thousands of years of planning, could it be that it was just to dig a big hole for myself? How laughable! Amidst his sorrowful laughter, his body was smashed into pieces by the combined attacks of the three of them. Xiang Bing stepped forward and kept the Dragon of Luck. The three of them greeted each other and went in three different directions. Right now, the battle was fierce and dangerous, and there was no time for idle chatter. It was more important to rush to other places as soon as possible. Perhaps if he said a few more words here, he might cause his brothers to be killed in other places. On the other side, Li Chenglong rushed into a thick fog and saw Yu Yin in a precarious situation. She was barely holding on, and opposite her was a member of the royal family who was possessed by Calamity traversing Star-Lord of the Southern Dipper Heavenly Palace. Yu Yen's situation was extremely bad. She was covered in blood and could die at any time. Li Chenglong roared, "Hang in there, I'm coming." Before he finished speaking, he had already rushed into the battle. Yu Yen heaved a sigh of relief. Her delicate body swayed and she almost fell. She reminded, "Be careful. The person opposite you is the #1 star of the Southern Dipper, the Calamity traversing Star-Lord of the Heavenly Palace. Hurry up and recover." Li Chenglong, who was already fighting with Calamity traversing Star-Lord, only had time to say this. He did not dare to be distracted anymore. Li Chenglong felt the pressure as soon as he started fighting. His opponent was indeed the #1 star of the Southern Dipper. He felt that his strength was second only to Zhuxiaoduo and Zhuxiaonian, but he could not suppress his opponent. It seemed that he had to delay until Zhua or the others came to surround him. Only then could he take down his opponent. The best way to delay was for Yu Yen to recover quickly and join forces with him. Otherwise, he might not be able to hold on. When Zhuxiaoduo rushed into another thick fog, 3 of the 15 stars in the sky had already dimmed. As the 3 stars dimmed, another demonic fog rose up as if it had lost its suppression. On the other side of the sky, a faint shadow appeared bit by bit. The projection of the demon ancestor was actually close to the astral souls. Of course, it was only the projection that was close. No one knew how far the demon ancestor was, but one thing was for sure, the demon ancestor's location was very accurate. This was a signal of extreme danger. As the demon ancestor's projection approached, the demons in the demon spirit forest felt their demonic aura boiling, and their excitement could not be suppressed. They could not help but release their own demonic aura in response. The demonic aura rose from the sky and the earth. At this moment, Zhan Xuejuan, who was lying quietly in the space of the Tower of Annihilation, suddenly opened her eyes. Demonic mist rose up in his eyes and flashed past. Then, a sharp murderous aura suddenly rose from her body. Zhan Xuejuan jumped up subconsciously and felt that her body was different from before. Her cultivation strength had increased by 10 times or even 100 times. At this moment, the power of the god-slaying spear had been left in her body, and her power was naturally 10 times or even 100 times stronger than before. She did not wake up during this period, but she was not completely unconscious. Strictly speaking, her mind was completely clear. It was just that she couldn't control her body no matter what. She could only allow the pure demonic aura to transform her body, her meridians, and even her consciousness bit by bit, Inch by inch, she slowly digested and absorbed that huge amount of power. She clearly knew that it was Zhuo who saved her, and she clearly knew that Zhuo had brought her to escape. Later, when Xiang Chong came and took care of her meticulously, Zhan Xuejuan was also clear in her heart. But she could not open her eyes, and she could not move even a little bit. But now, at this moment, she did not know what was going on, but she suddenly regained control of her body. Zhan Xuejuan turned over and got up. She clearly felt that strange and powerful force that had not been completely absorbed in her body, and she wanted to rush out spontaneously. At the same time, she also felt a tremor from her soul. That was the spiritual sense of the person she loved the most, who was now in a life and death crisis. Zhan Xuejuan was surrounded by a murderous aura, and she was extremely anxious. Duo rushed into the thick fog again. In an instant, he saw that Xiang Chong was covered in wounds, and he almost did not look human anymore. He could not hold on any longer. And the person fighting against him was another person from the Wang family, Wang Zilong. But at this moment, Wang Zilong's eyes were shining brightly, and he was laughing strangely. It was obvious that he had been possessed by a Star Lord, and was no longer his original body. Xiang Chong could not hold on any longer, and his body was covered in blood. Although he was still waving the Overlord halberd with all his might, it was almost out of order. How could he block the continuous attacks of the other party's longsword? The wounds on his body kept increasing. Duo rushed and threw out a heavenly secret order, and was about to help him, but a little understanding surged in his mind, and the attack that he was about to launch stopped. The fate calamity of Star Lord Lien Zhen in front of him should not be in his hands? Duo was puzzled. Suddenly, he felt that there seemed to be some movement in the Tower of Annihilation. Duo did not dare to be careless. The moment he opened it, there was a loud explosion, and an extremely rich devil chi flew out. A tall figure suddenly appeared. The person was tall and strong, and her long hair fluttered in the wind. She held a 5-meter-long spear in her hand, and her body was covered in devil chi. The spear was like a dragon, full of destructive power. The moment she appeared, she rushed towards Star Lord Lien Zhen like a meteor. Xiang Chong, who was almost powerless and exhausted on the ground, did not know where the strength came from. He suddenly jumped up and shouted in surprise, "Xuejuan?" Zhan Xuejuan's eyes were full of killing intent. Her spear was like a black dragon that pierced through the void. With a decisive momentum, it smashed Wang Zilong, who was possessing Star Lord Lien Zhen, 8 steps back. Star Lord Lien Zhen could not help but look up, and his eyes were full of shock. This girl. Who is she? How could she be so domineering? He saw the devil chi on the spear, and the sharp momentum of slaughtering the world. He could not help but be shocked and blurted out, "God-killing spear?" While he was stunned, Zhan Xuejuan's spear tip danced and created balls of colorful snowflakes again. In the rising devil chi, the spear went straight to the heart. Bang, 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 that the spear shadows turned into dense raindrops, and the sword in Star Lord Lien Zhen's hand was shaken away. His heart was exposed. The cold light carried abundant devil chi. Zhan Xuejuan jumped up, and with a roar, she stabbed the spear into Star Lord Lien Zhen's chest. After the successful attack, Zhan Xuejuan did not hesitate at all. She continued to rush forward with the spear, and skewered Wang Zilong's body, who was possessed by Star Lord Lien Zhen, on the spear tip. She spun him around a dozen times, and then fell to the ground heavily. Then the 5-meter-long spear turned into a huge stick. It fell down with a whistling sound. Chapter 1244. Puff, puff, puff. She hammered it 300 to 400 times in a row. Starlight exploded. Bye and Jiu rushed out. Hurry up and grab it, or you'll be eaten by that gun. Zhu Rong's true fire also rushed out. Just like before, luck points fell like rain. They fell into Zhuo's head, who was already dumbstruck. He was stunned for a long time, and he wasted the quick and easy points. Duo was now dumbfounded. Zhan Xuejuan. How could she be so strong? Xuejuan. Seeing that the battle was over, Xiang Chong rushed over in ecstasy. He didn't even forget to use the divine stone to heal his injuries and make himself look more energetic. Ah Chong. Zhang Xuejuan's eyes were full of deep love, but she took a step back with a complicated expression. Don't come over, listen to me. Xuejuan. What's wrong? Xiang Chang's eyes were full of joy. I have demonic energy in my body. I can't control it. Murderous energy. Zhang Xuejuan's eyes were full of pain as she murmured. The tyrannical power on her body didn't stop because the battle had ended. Instead, it was still there, and it was gradually increasing. What's wrong with you? Xiang Chang's heart tightened. I've been possessed by a demonic energy, and I'm not destined to be a good match for you. Zhang Xuejuan's face was full of pain. Xiang Chong was dumbfounded. Just as he was waiting for an explanation, he heard Zhuo Xiaoduo put away his phone and say impatiently, "The situation is so urgent now, where do you have time to watch the two of you act pitiful? If you have time to be sentimental, why don't you quickly split up and rescue the others?" The two of them were full of pain, but they were interrupted by the heartless words. They couldn't help but be stunned on the spot, not knowing how to react. It's just a little bit of demonic energy. How did you get possessed by a demonic energy? You look like you're cuckolded and pregnant. Why are you crying? What's there to cry about? Zhuo Xiaoduo pointed at him and said angrily, Zhang Xuejuan, your man is such a disappointment. Hurry up and get to work. See how the others are doing. Well, the two of you should work together. Look at Xiang Chong now. If he meets a strong enemy, he will definitely die. The two of you aren't paying attention to the main point right now. If there's anything you can't solve, don't you still have me? Hurry up and fuck off. Don't just focus on talking about love. Just the two of you want to feed me dog food? This little trick of yours is like playing with a broadsword in front of Guan Gong, playing with a spear in front of Zhao Zilong. Do you understand drunken spear? Let me tell you, I've already recorded it. If you don't want to be publicly executed, hurry up and get to work. Xiang Chong and Zhang Xuejuan blushed. The joy of reuniting after a long separation, the unspeakable pain, and the sadness in their hearts all flew away in an instant. The two of them looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo hatefully. Why is this bastard's words so unpleasant to hear? What do you mean by being cuckolded? Do you know how to speak properly? Also, we were speaking from the bottom of our hearts. How is that playing with words? How can this be the same as the flower spear? However, after hearing Zhuo Xiaoduo's words, Zhang Xuejuan immediately felt relieved. That's right, if there's anything you can't solve, there's Zhuo. Even if Zhuo can't solve it, there's still Zhuo's parents. At that time, the minister seemed to have mentioned my situation and said that I need some time to transition. Thinking of this, she immediately felt refreshed. Even the situation of being disturbed by the devil intent suddenly became much better. In fact, thinking about it, Zhang Xuejuan recalled how she was captured by the devil race and tortured as a tool. At that time, there was no hope at all. When they should have given up on saving her, Zhuo Xiaoduo still bravely stepped forward and rescued her from an impossible situation. That was already an impossible thing. Didn't he still do it? Nothing is impossible in this world if one has the will. As long as one has the will, as long as one doesn't give up, there's nothing in this world that can't be solved. Xiang Chong also thought of Zhuo Xiaoduo's divine ability. Since Zhuo said so, he must be certain that everything will be fine. The two of them were just scaring themselves and worrying for nothing. With this thought, he immediately felt relieved. After feeling relieved, he immediately gave Zhuo Xiaoduo a middle finger to take revenge on this guy for calling him a cuckold. Then he pulled Zhang Xuejuan and flew away. Even though their actions were quick, it still looked a little sweet and affectionate. It was obvious that the two of them had relaxed too early. They actually neglected another important point that Zhuo Xiaoduo mentioned. After the 9 heavenly tribulations, Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding led the unscrupulous couple, and Zhuo Xiaonian as an accomplice, they started another operation of the unscrupulous people, recording. Just now, Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't just say that he wanted to record. He really recorded it. Such high-quality material, if they didn't keep it as a memento, wouldn't it be a pity if they didn't use it as a means of blackmail and public punishment in the future? Well, in a sense, or from a long-term point of view, this material, this video, was the real threat to Xiang Chong and his wife in the future. How could a mere demonic disturbance compare to it? The difference was like heaven and earth, and they couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. However, Xiang Chong and his wife were far from understanding this. By the time they did, it was already too late. Seeing the two of them leave together with ease, Zuoshao Duo let out a long sigh of relief and hurriedly turned in the other direction. Zhang Xuejuan's problem was, of course, very big. However, when the boat reached the bridgehead, everything would be all right. This girl had heaven-defying luck and obtained heaven-ascending cultivation without any effort. How could it be possible that she didn't pay a considerable price? However, these things were all within the scope of being able to be dealt with as her cultivation increased. In the end, it wasn't a big deal. Besides, when Xiang Chong collected the fate dragon, the two of them could go out and find a suitable one to snatch for Zhang Xuejuan. Combining their fates, there was nothing they couldn't do. The thick fog churned. Chen Xiaotian had already killed the ancestral dragon high school student in front of him and collected the fate dragon. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he saw the thick fog churning and a black-robed youth rushing over. Zuoshao Duo immediately saw the corpse on the ground and smiled playfully. "It's already over?" Chen Xiaotian said indifferently. "Zuoshao Duo? You're a step too late." Zuoshao Duo looked at the heavenly secret order in his hand and his expression became even more playful. "Chen Xiaotian?" Chen Xiaotian smiled. "Nice to meet you." Zuoshao Duo narrowed his eyes and said, "The first star of the Big Dipper, the Sun Star, the Sky Commandant, the Greedy Wolf Star Lord, Gu Tianshu, is a first-class figure of the Demon Court. It's fate that we met. Why don't you come out and meet me?" Chen Xiaotian's pupils constricted. Starlight flickered in his eyes. He looked at Zuoshao Duo and said indifferently, "The so-called son of the Sky Inspector throne is indeed extraordinary. You're really knowledgeable." Upon hearing that, how could Zuoshao Duo not know that the person in front of him had changed? He smiled faintly and said, "I wonder if I should call you Star Lord Greedy Wolf? Or Sun Star Lord? Or Tanshu Star Lord?" Chen Shan said, "I'm Tanshu. However, the name of Greedy Wolf is indeed true. You can call me whatever you want." "Alright, hello, Star Lord Greedy Wolf." Zuoshao Duo smiled. "Lord Star Lord, you're possessing my old acquaintance. I almost couldn't recognize you." Star Lord Greedy Wolf narrowed his eyes. "Old acquaintance?" Zuoshao Duo laughed. "Meng Chintian, how long are you going to pretend?" Chen Xiaotian's gaze turned cold. He immediately reverted to his original voice. "Zuoshao Duo, you're really sharp. I admire you. However, I still don't understand. How did you recognize me? Is it possible to clear my doubts before you kill me?" Zuoshao Duo said indifferently, "With your insignificant skills, do you really think you can create such a secret? All of your plans and schemes are nothing but a joke in my eyes." Zuoshao Duo was not bluffing. He had indeed discovered Meng Chintian long ago. Previously, when they were gathering people, Zuoshao Duo had already thrown out 36 Tianji orders. Through the feedback of the Tianji orders, Zuoshao Duo was surprised to find that Meng Chintian was among them. He really did not expect that Meng Chintian could sneak into ancestral dragon Gao Wu's team. What surprised Zuoshao Duo even more was not only Meng Chintian, but also another acquaintance. He had only heard of her name but had never met her before. She was Ning Qingqing. When Zuoshao Duo saw these two names, he immediately felt that something was wrong. Could it be that ancestral dragon Gao Wu had become a sieve? How could he be infiltrated like this? Since he came in, he had been trying his best to find Meng Chintian. He knew very well how insidious this guy was. On that day, he had wiped out the entire Meng family's account book. Only Meng Chintian was fine. Not only did he escape, but he could also sneak into ancestral dragon Gao Wu and attend the dragon bloodline competition today. Zuoshao Duo had already known that this guy was definitely not of the Meng family's bloodline. Ning Qingqing also escaped, so Ning Qingqing was not a member of the Ning family. Thinking about it carefully, these two guys were not only lucky, but also luckier than ordinary people. After running out of the first Heavenly Dao layout and going around in circles, they actually entered the second Heavenly Dao layout. Now, they seem to be the main force. If it were not for his manifestation technique that had improved further, he was afraid that he would not be able to see through the true identity of these two people. It was hard to say who would win or lose. Meng Chentian's voice came out slowly. How many people of the Meng family are still alive? Zuoxiao Duo sneered. Including you, almost all of them are dead. Now, in the whole Meng family, only you, Meng Chentian, have not been wiped out. Meng Chentian did not speak. Instead, it was the voice of the greedy wolf star monarch. Zuoxiao Duo, are you killing people now to exterminate the whole family? Zuoxiao Duo laughed and said sarcastically, Greedy wolf star monarch, what you said surprised me. According to the ancient records, when the demon clan ruled the continent, didn't you always want to eat a whole city of people? But now, it's just exterminating a family for revenge and you can't stand it? Why are you pretending to be a big shot? The greedy wolf star monarch laughed. Starlight shone, and a demon subduing pestle appeared in his hand. He said lightly, since that's the case, I will do the heavenly patrol on behalf of heaven and enforce justice on behalf of heaven. Chapter 1245. Bah! Zuoxiao Duo spat and said disdainfully, can you not be so hypocritical? If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you talking nonsense? Why was the heavenly court of the demon race destroyed back then? It's probably the reason why all of you are so talkative and procrastinating. Greedy Wolf Star Lord's face darkened. This kid's mouth was really vicious. If I win, don't forget to hand over the Dragon of Providence. Greedy Wolf Star Lord looked at Zuoxiao Duo with a covetous look in his eyes. If I win, you have to hand over the Dragon of Providence. Zuoxiao Duo would not be at a disadvantage. His aura could not be weak. In this space of providence, once the Dragon of Providence entered a person's body, it could not be taken out without the person's consent. In fact, this was reasonable. How could one get out the providence that had already turned into one's body? However, the dragon's snatching pulse had just begun. Zuoxiao Duo and Greedy Wolf Star Lord had both gained something. Although the Dragon of Providence had been taken into their bodies, it should not have completely merged with their own providence. It could still be forced out. Not only did Greedy Wolf Star Lord know this, but so did Zuoxiao Duo. Okay. With a thought, a Dragon of Providence slowly emerged from Greed Star Lord's body. Then he placed the Dragon of Providence on the ground and coiled it into a ball. The Dragon of Providence sensed for a moment and instinctively wanted to rush towards Zuoxiao Duo. The human in this position was much luckier than the person he had just possessed. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. However, Greedy Wolf Star Lord pressed it down and shouted in a deep voice, Zuoxiao Duo, what about you? Zuoxiao Duo was displeased. I, Iron Fist Young Master Zuoxiao Duo, have always been open and aboveboard. How can I go back on my words on such a matter? With a thought, the door of the Void Extermination Pagoda opened. Xiao Long transformed into an illusory fog and curled over. At least, he looked exactly the same as the Dragon of Providence. Their eyes were lifeless, and they only had shape and basic instincts. They did not have intelligence or spiritual sense. The two dragons looked at each other and coiled into a ball. They both sat there obediently. All right, the bet is set. The winner and loser are clear. A gentleman never goes back on his word. Good. The winner gets everything, and the loser loses everything. That's how it should be, fair and just. The winner is the king and the loser is a thief. That's how it is. The greedy wolf star monarch smiled with satisfaction and murderous intent surged in his eyes. Zuoxiao Duo die. Before he finished speaking, he had already soared into the air. Suddenly, specks of starlight descended from above. Zuoxiao Duo let out a loud roar and charged forward with his bare hands. His entire body was overflowing with the might of the third layer of the flaming sun scripture as he brazenly attacked. The demon's subduing pestle was mixed with the whistling sound of the wind as it approached. Seeing that Zuoxiao Duo was actually fighting with his fists, perfected Lord Greedy Wolf laughed in his heart. Could it be that this kid was an idiot? fighting against my starlight demon subduing pestle with his bare hands, not to mention that this kid's cultivation level was lower than mine. Even if it was not, he would be at a great disadvantage and have no chance of winning. However, just as he was thinking that, Zhuoxiao Duo in front of him suddenly disappeared and was replaced by two huge hammers that covered Zhuoxiao's entire body. The two huge hammers, mixed with the tyrannical power of thunder, slammed heavily on the demon's subduing pestle. There was a deafening boom. Perfected Lord Greedy Wolf was sent flying more than 100 feet away with the demon's subduing pestle. Zhuoxiao Duo succeeded in his attack and did not hesitate at all. The two hammers in his hands turned into a storm and smashed over continuously. Every hammer strike was with all his strength. No matter how you parry, I'll hammer with all my strength. A similar situation had been repeated several times, just like a bowl copying a gourd. Perfected Lord Greedy Wolf was shocked and used all his strength to fight back, but he was still forced to retreat more than 100 meters by Zhuoxiao Duo in one breath. Although it seemed that he was at a disadvantage, Perfected Lord Greedy Wolf was puzzled. What's the use of fighting with all your strength? You can only force me to retreat at most. What's the use? Don't you know that strength cannot last long and softness cannot be defended? As long as I can withstand your first burst of energy, I'll be weakened by the second and exhausted by the third, and the outcome will be reversed. Just as his imagination was running wild, he suddenly saw something. Immediately, his eyes widened and he furiously said, "Shut up! Despicable!" He counterattacked in an extremely frenzied manner. Because he saw that the two Providence dragons that were originally sitting on the ground obediently, the one that belonged to Zhuoxiao Duo, suddenly moved when Zhuoxiao Duo launched a fierce attack. It suddenly jumped up, opened its mouth, and swallowed its own Providence dragon in one gulp. When he saw it, more than half of the Providence dragon that originally belonged to him had been swallowed. Zhuoxiao's Providence dragon looked extremely satisfied at this moment, and it even glanced at him sideways. The strange look in his eyes was as if a normal person was looking at a fool. That this feeling made Star-Lord Greedy Wolf feel that he was an idiot, that he had been fooled. He had been fooled. This kid didn't want to keep his promise at all. The previous words and actions were all pawns. It was a trick to deceive him. It turned out that this dragon knew how to eat other dragons. This was really... Where's your martial arts demeanor? Where's your honesty? Where's your word? Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was furious. After fighting with the Wu people for a long time, he was used to his opponents being people who kept their promises. Now, he actually met such a shameless person. To be honest, he had never thought that his opponent would go back on his word. He had never thought that his opponent would go back on his word. He had done it so openly and without any disguise at all. He had even done it so happily. What a bastard. Zhuoxiao's hammers moved like the wind, but his posture became steady and calm. Hearing this, he said disdainfully, "Of course I keep my promise. Did you see me snatching your dragon? I'm so far away. How can I snatch it? Besides, we have a gentleman's agreement. Once a promise is made, it can't be taken back." Bullshit. Your dragon ate my dragon. Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was about to explode. What does that have to do with me? I kept my promise and didn't touch it. Zhuoxiao Duo said, "The bet is fair and just. What's the difference between your dragon eating it and taking it yourself? You despicable man." Bullshit. Why are you so unreasonable? Zhuoxiao Duo said angrily, "Your dragon can also eat mine. Who can you blame if it doesn't eat it?" Star-Lord Greedy Wolf gritted his teeth and broke them. He shut up and didn't say anything. It was useless to talk. This was because after the Dragon of Destiny devoured his own dragon, it actually flew up and disappeared. Despicable, shameless, 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 and immoral. This is the best. Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was so disgusted that he felt as if he had swallowed a pile of feces. He never thought that one day he would be played like this. He became more and more furious, and his attacks became fiercer, intending to kill Zhuoxiao Duo in one fell swoop. Zhuoxiao Duo used the Flaming Sun Sutra to control the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer. He didn't underestimate the enemy and attacked rashly. The Primordial Fire Technique, Zhu Rong's True Fire, by, and Geo didn't help in the battle. Because Duo found that Star-Lord Greedy Wolf in front of him was indeed worthy of being the head of the Big Dipper. His strength was much stronger than the other Star-Lords he had encountered. Even if he used all his strength, he might only be able to defeat him and not kill him in one fell swoop. Since it was difficult to finish the battle in one fell swoop, how could Duo expose his trump card under such circumstances? After all, those who had seen all of Duo's trump cards were all dead. No one was an exception. Star-Lord Greedy Wolf's demon subduing pestle was formed from primordial chi starlight. Not only was its texture special, but it also had a special characteristic. As long as Star-Lord Greedy Wolf repaired it with starlight, it could be intact for a long time. It could even be indestructible. Furthermore, Duo's 99 Cat Hammer was a genuine divine weapon. The three weapons collided in succession, and the sound of their power was earth-shattering. As the weapons collided continuously, the nearby space shattered and reformed, and then was destroyed again. The deafening sound did not stop from the beginning. The demon's subduing pestle was shattered and condensed again and again. Both sides were fighting with all their might. However, Duo clearly felt that the Star-Lord Greedy Wolf in front of him was fundamentally different from the Star-Lord Vanquisher from before. The Star-Lord Vanquisher from before was a pure martial arts fanatic. In order to fight, he would rather die than retreat. However, this Star-Lord Greedy Wolf had a lot of thoughts. In addition to the slight damage to the demon's subduing pestle, he had to use starlight to repair it so that the weapon was always in its best and most powerful state. He also had all kinds of sneak attacks and sinister tricks. The traps hidden in every move and style were so many that it made one speechless. Duo braced himself and dealt with it with all his might. Duo was trembling with fear. He was very careful, afraid that he would accidentally fall into his opponent's trap. However, he did not know that Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was also about to vomit. Since ancient times, no matter what kind of experts the immortals and mortals were, they hated opponents like Duo the most. He was born with divine strength, and his strength was many times stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. No matter what move you used, he would smash you with his hammer. You had thousands of brilliant plans, but he only had one set of rules. This kind of method was really disgusting. Because no matter how many techniques you used, he would ignore them all. And a person like Duo, who was already very disgusting, had to be added to the word more. Because in addition to ignoring your techniques, he had countless techniques in addition to his set of rules. If he ignored your techniques, there was nothing you could do. However, if you ignored his techniques, you might face a tragic ending of being smashed into a meat patty at any time. Moreover, Duo's hammer was too big. No matter what move you used, as long as he pushed the hammer forward, you could only hit the hammer. Because the hammer completely blocked his body, leaving no room for escape, that such a battle atmosphere made Star-Lord Greedy Wolf feel simply disgusted. It was so disgusting that he opened the door. Chapter 1246. On the surface, Greedy Wolf Star seemed to be fighting calmly, but in fact, he was cursing in his heart. The ancestors of the Zwa family had all been taken care of more than once. They came excitedly and had just collected a dragon of luck. Then they encountered such a disgusting guy. They even lost the dragon of luck that they had already obtained. The person was disgusting, the character was disgusting, the weapon was disgusting, the way he fought was disgusting, the skills were even more disgusting, and the way he dealt with things was the most disgusting. How could he not be disgusted? What kind of person could give birth to such a thing? And who trained such a thing? Could it be that the people in the Astral Souls continent are like this? Greedy Wolf Star cursed in his heart as he fought. Judging from his looks, his parents and master are probably not good people. As the battle continued, another realization that made Greedy Wolf Star Lord feel particularly aggrieved came to him. He had a subtle feeling that he was training the other party when he was fighting with the other party. If this feeling came true, then not only would he be disgusted, but he would also be depressed and aggrieved. He had originally hoped that this boy could use such a heavy weapon for a long time. It could not be used for long, especially when fighting with an expert like him. He was afraid that this boy would be exhausted in a short time, and then he would be at his mercy. But how could he expect that this boy, who had already hammered thousands of times, still looked as if he was not tired at all, and he could still hammer 100,000 times? What the hell is going on today? In the booming sounds, Zuo became braver and braver as he fought. The two hammers, which weighed more than 20,000 kilograms, flew up and down. The two hammers, which weighed more than 20,000 kilograms, were held in his hands as if they were weightless. He pointed to the east and hit the west. After a long while, the surroundings became hotter and hotter, and the air began to be distorted by the blazing energy emitted by Zuo. Zuo looked at Greedy Wolf Star and seemed to be a little impatient. Thinking quickly, he shouted at the right time, "Look at my unique skill!" Before he could finish his words, he had already infused the primordial fire art into the blazing sun divine art. The temperature instantly rose a second time, even hotter than before, and his attacks were even more ferocious. However, the Greedy Wolf Star Lord was relieved in the face of the soaring attack. He had been waiting for Zuo to use his trump card. During the Great War of the Liches and Demons, everyone had been playing around leisurely. When it came to fighting with their lives on the line, even if it was an inconspicuous guy, the power he could unleash was not to be underestimated. Over time, he had developed a habit of not using his trump card right from the start. He had to keep a trump card to deal with the enemy. Otherwise, if the enemy dodged it while in perfect condition, it would be his turn to suffer. The longer one kept their trump cards, the longer they would live. If his background was known early on, he would definitely become the target of public criticism. No matter how high his cultivation was, it would be difficult for him to escape the danger of death. This guy really has a trump card. He's smart. In the Greedy Wolf Star Lord's opinion, with Zuo's current cultivation, it was already something that countless young heroes and talents could not do in a fight with an expert like him. Indeed, he was worthy of the 4 words. However, that was all. With a thought, the demon-subduing pestle rolled up with a hum, and its momentum soared. Starlight shone brightly. 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 4, and with a shake of his body, he turned into a figure with 3 heads and 6 arms. He waved the 6 demon-subduing pestles and pounced fiercely. When Zuo used his trump card, the Greedy Wolf Star Lord also showed his trump card, which was enough to kill Zuo. In the face of the Greedy Wolf Star Lord, who had detonated his ultimate trump card, Zuo was really shocked. He had tried his best to overestimate the strength of the person in front of him, but he did not expect the old guy to be so insidious that he had kept such a powerful trump card for so long. If he had really ignored everything and used all his strength just now, he might have been able to suppress the opponent for a short period of time. However, as long as the opponent took a breath and launched a full counterattack with 3 heads and 6 arms, even if he would not be defeated, he would inevitably suffer a great loss. It's still the same principle of building up energy at the first spurt, weakening at the second, and exhausting at the third. At that time, I won't have any time to change my moves. If I use all my spiritual energy to attack, even if I have a trump card, I won't have enough time to use it. Fortunately, he had already reserved some strength. With a loud roar, Bai and Jiao were summoned into the 9-9 cat hammer. The third, more blazing flame, Zhu Rong's genuine fire, also surged out and mixed with 2 heads and 4 arms of the opponent. There was a shrill scream, and a smell of barbecued meat instantly filled the air. The Greedy Wolf Star Lord instantly retreated. Like his brothers, he was also caught off guard and suffered a loss from Zhu Rong's genuine fire. Flames rose all over his body, and he screamed, "The successor of Zhu Wu, the god of fire, Zhu Rong?" And Zuo was waiting for this moment, the flaw of the opponent's mind. At the moment when the opponent's strongest attack failed, he launched a large-scale attack and attacked head-on, taking advantage of the victory to pursue and attack. Zhu Rong's genuine fire suddenly expanded. This time, the hammer was directly added with the power of Yin-Yang Samsara of Bai and Jiao. With an unprecedented momentum, it smashed out one after another. At the same time, the six-pointed star of the starry sky eternal stone, which had been hidden before, also passed through Zhu Rong's genuine fire. With a flash of light, it went straight to the greedy wolf star. The real firepower was unleashed. The greedy wolf Star Lord was caught off guard by the sudden change and was directly attacked by Zhu Rong's genuine fire. Although he reacted quickly and retreated, he still inevitably lost a head and two arms. Not only was he in so much pain that he wished he was dead, but his combat power was also sharply reduced. It should be known that his current strength was limited to starlight origin energy, not natal demonic power. It could not allow him to recover instantly. This sharp decrease had caused him to lose almost a third of his strength, and the pain of his divine sense being burned still lingered, causing him to be unable to endure it. As he staggered back, the opponent's hammer chased after him without giving him a chance to breathe. When they came into contact again, he was shocked to find that the opponent's strength seemed to have more than doubled on the original basis. Not only had he become weaker, but the opponent had become stronger as well. The difference between their strengths was even greater now. As soon as the greedy wolf Star Lord came into contact, he could not hold his body steady and staggered back. However, Zhuo Duo shook his hands, and the two hammers left greedy wolf Star Lord's hands and chased after him. This change was even more beyond the greedy wolf Star Lord's expectations. No matter how hard he tried, it was hard for him to imagine that the other party would use such heavy and huge hammers as meteor hammers. Before he could think about it, one of the hammers had already smashed his shoulder. The demon's subduing pestle immediately flew out of his hand and turned into starlight fragments, never to exist again. The shoulder that was hit by the hammer was shattered without any room to resist. The greedy wolf Star Lord was still desperately dodging and retreating, hoping to be lucky. The two hammers that were chasing after him suddenly changed again, and there was a flash of silver light at the main target of the attack. His two eyes were suddenly pierced by more than 10 needles. Moreover, after the needles were pierced, they immediately exploded, not giving the greedy wolf Star Lord any room to maneuver. "Ow!" The greedy wolf Star Lord screamed, "Hidden weapons!" Before his voice died away, 3 hexagrams of the eternal starry sky stone had already formed the shape of a letter and drilled straight into his chest, hitting the vital part of his heart. The moment the starlight exploded again, a figure completely made of starlight suddenly broke away from Meng Chentian's body and flew hundreds of meters away in an illusory state. Meng Chentian's battered body lay on the ground like a broken sack, covered with cuts and bruises. However, Zhuo Duo had no time to care about him. He rushed to the greedy wolf Star Lord as if he was flying. "Want to run? I haven't received my luck points yet. Why are you running? How could I let you have any leeway to escape from this demon?" The two hammers seemed to be flying out of his hands, but in fact, they were being controlled by Bai and Jiu, maintaining the remaining momentum of the Thousand Souls nightmare hammers and the power of yin and yang from the two little ones. Immediately, the wind of reincarnation surged. The black and white power naturally formed the shape of a yin-yang fish and smashed down crazily, with the intention to kill. The greedy wolf Star Lord endured the pain and shouted, "Wait!" Zhuo Duo didn't seem to hear him. He hammered 3 times in a row, without any mercy. "Wait! I can stay and guide your cultivation with the power of my soul. You should know that it's not a threat at all," the greedy wolf Star Lord said loudly. Boom, boom, boom. What answered him was still the sledgehammers smashing down like a storm. For Zhuo Duo, no temptation or benefits were more useful than luck points. Furthermore, Zhuo Duo could clearly see the true meaning of the greedy wolf Star Lord's words. "When the demons return, will you still be as easy to talk to as you are now? When that time comes, you can return to your main body at any time. Won't crushing me be as easy as crushing a bug? If I believe your nonsense, won't I be even more stupid than you?" Zhuo Duo thought about these things very deeply. Naturally, he wouldn't be greedy for temporary benefits and leave behind future troubles. In the starlight shadow, the greedy wolf Star Lord was begging for mercy at first. Then, seeing that his pleas were useless, he laughed crazily. Suddenly, all the starlight scattered, and a faint voice sounded. "Under the guidance of the life soul, The person who kills me will never forget this hatred. A faintly discernible illusory starlight rushed into the space between Zhuoxiaoduo's eyebrows. When Zhuoxiaoduo saw the inexplicable attack, he tried to block it with the 99 cat hammer and Zhu Rong's true fire, but he failed. The starlight pierced straight through and entered the space between his eyebrows, but he didn't feel anything after that. Then, with a bang, the starlight exploded. The starlight body of the greedy wolf Star Lord dissipated into thin air, no longer existing in the world. 700 luck points poured in like a storm. Chapter 1247. Zhuoxiaoduo laughed and walked back, dragging the sledgehammer. There were still 2 drops of luck points left. Meng Chintian. This guy was actually not dead yet. His life was indeed very tenacious. When he came to Meng Chintian, he found that Meng Chintian was dying and could die at any time. He stared at the approaching Zhuoxiaoduo with his only intact eye. Do you have something to say? If you don't, are you unwilling to die? Zhuoxiaoduo looked at Meng Chintian and asked faintly. Meng Chintian could be regarded as a talent of his generation. At this moment he was seriously injured. His internal organs had been smashed, and his dantian and purple mansion had turned into a pile of paste. With his cultivation, he should have died long ago. At this moment he forced himself to stay alive because he still had some doubts. If this obsession could not be resolved, he would not die in peace. I do have something I don't understand. Meng Chintian said with difficulty, I hope. You can enlighten me. Go ahead. Zhuoxiaoduo said. I'm very curious. Why? Meng Chintian said intermittently, Why? Why can't I hide from you? The moment Zhuoxiaoduo called out his name, Meng Chintian instinctively knew that this plan was going to fail again. Because no matter what, Zhuoxiaoduo should not know about his existence. Moreover, Zhuoxiaoduo was not surprised at all that he had appeared in the layout of the Heavenly Way. No matter how Meng Chintian thought about it, he felt that this was absolutely impossible. In order to hide his identity, he had been keeping a low profile since he came to Shangjing. Unless it was a last resort, he would not show his face in public. His actions were flawless. How did Zhuoxiaoduo know about his identity? He was even very sure that Zhuoxiaoduo did not know about his identity and the changes that happened here before the dragons fought for the Heavenly Way. If Zhuoxiaoduo knew about it, he would not even allow him to appear here. But why did he know about it when they had just met? He had even figured out the Star-Lord's plan to possess him and used a targeted strategy to kill the greedy wolf Star-Lord. What was more, judging from Zhuoxiaoduo's performance, he had probably killed more than one greedy wolf Star Master. In that case, more than one Star Master had been killed by him. This result was simply too absurd. The Stargate sect had been planning this for many years. They had spent countless manpower, resources, and time to confirm that this plan was foolproof. Yet, Zhuoxiaoduo was able to break it without knowing anything. Meng Chintian wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death if someone told him that it was all because of the power of luck that could turn misfortunes into blessings. I know of your existence and I have my reasons for destroying your plans, Zhuoxiaoduo said. It shouldn't be. Meng Chintian's voice grew fainter and fainter. Back then in Phoenix City, everything was clearly within our control. Back then, you were just a child with a mediocre cultivation base. Yet, you were able to turn the tables and overturn the entire situation. Everything was set up, but you, an outsider, actually broke the feng shui formation and set up a heaven-defying plan. I have been thinking about this for years, but I still can't figure it out. But Zhuoxiaoduo sneered. Don't you know that I know the art of observing qi? Meng Chintian struggled and wanted to shake his head, but he had no strength left. He said, No, it's not the art of observing qi. Even if Dongfang Xingyang were here in person, he wouldn't be able to overturn the situation so easily. His breath was getting weaker and weaker, and he was on the verge of begging. Although, my strength is mediocre, but when it comes to life planning, I've always been proud of it. I've never lost so miserably, so inexplicably, without a single clue. I'm dying. Zhuoxiaoduo, Can you clear my doubts? Meng Chintian asked. That was indeed the case. Ever since Meng Chintian started to carry out missions, he had always been complacent. Only when he lost to Zhuo Duo did he lose twice in a row. Moreover, both times, it could be said that he lost in a muddle-headed manner. Everything had been calculated, all the preparations had been made, and all the connections had been made. Everything that could be used had been used. Even the way of heaven was part of his calculation and cooperation. The ancient star formation that unified all 15 star gates, the legend of the mission from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Everything had been dug out. With so many advantages, how could he not be confused when he lost so easily? If he couldn't know the truth, Meng Chintian would die with regret. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. Zhuo Duo was very determined. Who knows if you're dead or not? Who knows if you can still send messages after your death? What greedy wolf star did just now is enough to give me a headache, isn't it? If I tell you, won't I have to live in fear all day long? A bitter smile flashed through Meng Chintian's single eye. He could understand Zhuo Duo's caution. If it were him, he would most likely have made the same choice. He fell silent in disappointment for a moment, then suddenly asked, Chinyu, before she died, what did she say? He struggled to ask, does she hate me? Meng Chinyu? This name, which he hadn't heard for a long time, reminded Zhuo Duo of many things. That girl with short hair and a valiant figure. She should have been a girl favored by the heavens, but she had been influenced into a vicious woman. Zhuo Duo didn't want to answer, but after thinking for a while, he said, she died very quickly that day and didn't suffer much pain. Naturally, she didn't have time to say anything. I don't know if she hates you or not. Meng Chintian asked with a trembling voice, will I have a chance to see her in the netherworld? Zhuo Duo said lightly, her soul has a chance to go to the netherworld. If there really is a netherworld. But you are destined to never meet her in the netherworld. Meng Chintian relaxed and murmured, that's good. That's good. She still has a chance. That's good. He didn't know where he was looking, but he seemed to see the little sister from back then. She was as cute as ice. She held his hand and looked up at him. She asked innocently, are you my brother? Are you really my brother? So I have a brother. Brother, will you play with me? Those big clear eyes, that little face that was as pretty as a piece of jade that Meng Chintian looked into the void, and a trace of gentleness and guilt slowly appeared on his face. He murmured, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He kept saying sorry, and his voice got lower and lower. He kept saying until there was no more sound, no breath. His single eye was still looking at a certain direction affectionately. In a flash, 2 fate points fell from the sky. This proved that Meng Chintian was dead. He was really dead. Zhuo Duo watched as Bai and Blackie rushed out and devoured Meng Chintian's soul, but he did not stop them. He did not have a trace of pity in his heart from the beginning to the end. It doesn't make sense that I would let you go after you've done so many evil deeds for your whole life. That's impossible. Well, it seems that Meng Chinyu was the one who killed the 9x9 cat hammer. However, the 9x9 cat hammer and Bai Xiaohe did not have the power to annihilate the original soul. With his cultivation strength at that time, he was indeed unable to destroy Meng Chinyu's soul. It was not a lie to say that she still had a chance to go to the netherworld. At this moment, a misty power of fate slowly rose from Meng Chintian's body. Power of fate. Zhuo Duo was stunned. He had planned to leave and go to other places as soon as possible. He did not expect that there would be another change. He had killed so many people, but this was the first time such a situation had happened. Meng Chintian had an additional power of fate? What kind of explanation was this? Why didn't anyone else have it? Zhuo Duo looked at it subconsciously. He found that this power of fate was rather dishonest. There were specks of starlight in it, and it seemed to be spreading into the sky. What was more, when it first came out, its shape was even more strange. It vaguely looked like the shape of an ancient array that since such a good thing had appeared, Zhuo Duo would never let it disappear. Want to run? Zhuo Duo coughed. Xiao Long rushed out like a hungry tiger. He pounced on the power of fate like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. After a few bites, he swallowed it into his stomach. Immediately, he heard Xiaolong's voice in his mind, "Boss, this thing seems to be just a primer." Primer? What primer? It's this plot. If it succeeds, it will lead all the fate to the sky with this power of fate. It will turn into demonic chi and benefit the Southern Dipper star array. Then it will lead to some kind of consequence. Zuoxiao Duo nodded and said, "I see. This is the real key." No wonder Greedy Wolf Star Monarch chose to possess someone from his camp. Since the cause and effect were clear, Zuoxiao Duo did not hesitate. He waved his hand and put away the eternal star stone on the ground. He floated up and flew to the other side of the thick fog. Before he flew out of this area, he waved his hand. A strong force flew out and blew Meng Chintian's broken body lying on the ground into pieces. The moment he passed through the thick fog, the fog blew on his face. It was like a dream. Zuoxiao Duo suddenly had a feeling. A certain era or a certain period it was finally over. Perhaps from now on, he would no longer be the Zuoxiao Duo in Phoenix City. Even if his original intention had not changed, time had changed. Things remained the same, but people had changed. Today, the grudge from back then had finally turned into a dusty memory. That Yu Moyan was trying his best to fight against a strong enemy. Suddenly, the thick fog on the left side turned over. Duguyen rushed in and joined the battle without saying a word, fighting side by side with Yu Moyan. "Why did you come at such a good time?" Yu Moyan was overjoyed. Compared to others, he naturally hoped that Duguyen would come to his side. He was just trying his best to deal with the strong enemy in front of him. If Yen faced an enemy of similar strength alone, wouldn't she be in danger? Now that Duguyen came to his rescue, Yu Moyan's heart, which had been hanging in the air, could finally be at ease. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.